Hi everyone, welcome to this month's Last Call podcast. If you have been following along so far, you know how this works. If not, what have you been doing? This is where we are reviewing each and every Star Wars film once a month in chronological order until we get to December and the release of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, when we do intend to record one of these as soon as many of us have seen the film as possible to try and get that out to you. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Kyle Malone. And if you're wondering why I am talking this week instead of Kyle, Kyle basically just thinks I'm being a little bit lazy and it's my turn to do a little bit of work. So, hey-ho, that's where we are. We are joined this week, as you know, we always have special guests, and we have a very special guest this week. We have Joseph Jammer Medina, if you please. Jammer, how are you?
I'm great. I'm doing great. Excited to talk. Have I done one of these before? I feel like I maybe done one, but I don't remember. No, this is my first one.
This is your first one.
All right.
Yep. Broke your cherry on this one.
There we go. It wasn't painful, so I think it was good.
It should be pointed out that there is a specific reason that why we sort of arranged this so that Jammer would be on this one and the next one that he is going to be on as well, which will be in November, which is The Last Jedi. Jammer, would you like to tell the listeners why we have selected you for these two films and specifically?
Sure. So basically, first, I'm the editor-in-chief of the website, so clearly my opinions are really important to this franchise, and as you guys know, that means
bullshit.
Am I not the editor-in-chief of the website?
No, just that your opinions.
Yeah. My opinions. Basically, my opinions are really important. You guys were really excited to think what I thought about this movie and how it compares to one of the better movies in the franchise, Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Indeed. That's exactly what it is. So, yes, Jammer, you have obviously ranked the Star Wars films, and
yes.
If you could just remind the listeners of your top three choices, please.
Oh, shit. I don't remember my top three choices.
Well,
actually, do I remember? What was my number one? What was my number one? I know my number two and number
A New
three.
Hope. Number one
was
A
it?
New
Oh,
Hope,
that sounds right. Okay, so it was probably A New Hope, Last Jedi, and Empire Strikes Back. I think those were my top three.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. So I think that tells you everything you want to know, listeners, about why we have asked Jammer to come on to this one specifically, because today we are on to The Empire Strikes Back, which is the best Star Wars film of all time. In fact, in my opinion, The Empire Strikes Back is the best movie of all time. It's my number one. It's been for a long, long time. Mr. Malone, what do you think, or what did you think about Empire Strikes Back before we did this?
Well, the last time I had watched this movie was earlier this year. I got my hands on the despecialized version of Star Wars, and I wanted to check them out, and so that was the one that I chose to watch, and I love this film. Always thought it was the best one there was. Always thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. God, this is probably the one that I've watched the most, followed very closely by next month's movie, actually, Return of the Jedi. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff we're going to discuss here, but I mean, it's got a great score, it's got great pacing. It's definitely not a standalone film, and it feels like it's a part of a big story, which I actually really like. I think there's a lot of great character development in this movie. Yeah, man, it's just so fucking great, and there's a lot of stereotypes about Star Wars fans and this particular film and their adoration for it, but it's all well deserved. You know what I'm saying?
It's all true. It's all true.
And Jammer, what about yourself? What do you?
So I have watched these movies so many times, like more than I can count. I mean, maybe not as much as you can, but I'm pretty confident that I broke in, I don't know. It's possible I broke in 100. So it's really hard for me to go back and watch these things without and fully concentrate on it. you know, like you put in our Slack, you're like, I pretty much know every line. And while I don't necessarily know every line, I think the last time I watched this movie before recently was a couple years ago. I'm just like, I know every pretty much cadence and moment and stuff. And it is really hard to go back to that time when you first didn't see it and really kind of recall how you felt in that first moment. Because without a doubt, it is a great movie, for sure. Like, just because it is, you know, after 2 Star Wars movies does not mean I think it's a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. But anyways, before I watched it, it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's a great movie, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to actually, you know, sit through it and concentrate on it just because of how well I know it. Like, I think unlike you guys, I have this sort of bell curve of how much I enjoy things. And then once I start watching things a certain number of times, my enjoyment doesn't go up. It just tends to go down. I tend to get sick of it. And I think somewhere around 80 or 95 or 162, I just stopped enjoying it. And that's not to say it's bad. It's just to say, like, it was hard for me to squeeze out any more enjoyment. And as a result, it's really impossible for me to actually, what is the word? Effectively even compare this to something as new as The Last Jedi or a Force Awakens, simply because those are fresher, newer experiences for me, and I tend to get more enjoyment out of fresher and newer experiences. So that's also, without a doubt, one of the reasons why it was ranked as such. Also, you mentioned, Kyle, this is not a standalone film, which is not a slight against it by any means, but it kind of has that Avengers Infinity War effect, and I'm also kind of infamous for giving that movie like a B-. I think it's as good as it could have been, for sure, considering its scope, but it didn't have sort of that satisfying, fulfilling conclusion that you felt like everything was wrapped up, so it didn't have that sort of punch at the end, that fulfilling aspect that I felt like The Last Jedi did have comparatively. So those are the reasons why I kind of ranked them as I did, but I'm excited to talk about the rest of the movie.
Okay, well, I mean, right away that just sounds like you making excuses to me before we start.
Oh my god!
I have been waiting for this day since we started this back in February.
No,
Jesus
The Last
Christ.
Jedi is going to be the one.
That's
going to be the one.
That's the big one.
Okay. Cut. Guys, I tell you what it is, I realised I've misplaced my notes, so give me 2 seconds and we'll get straight on.
Yep. Oh god, we've been unpacking our house, and we have, I think, all of our boxes unpacked, and now it's just a matter of actually putting things where they need to be and finalizing everything. And putting up wall decorations and photos and all that.
Okay, I actually misplaced them. I had just put them about 1 foot away from me, and just forgotten where I'd put them, so okay, I'll just pause for a bit and then carry on. Okay, so let's start going through The Empire Strikes Back. If you've watched this before, we kind of tend to follow the movie from the start, walk through it if you like, and offer our opinions and just kind of naturally fall into discussions as we go along. So, as always, well, when this came out, obviously, I mean, there's a good question that I should have asked. When was the last time you watched this before this week?
Yeah, for me, like I said, it was earlier this year to check out the despecialized version. It was just like, because I own the DVDs, the one and only set of DVDs that have, I think it's a Laserdisc conversion.
It's a Laserdisc conversion,
yeah. So that's how I usually watch it. Despecialized uses a bunch of different sources to make one movie that is voided. Devoid. Voided. There we go.
No, void. Just void.
Yeah, of the
voided. I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah. Hold on, I'm stuck on a grammar problem now. Anyways.
Continue. Oh no. Anyways, it doesn't have all the special edition stuff on it. And,
hold on a second. Up. Cam, can you solve this grammar issue?
Yes, it would be devoid of.
It is devoid of.
There we go.
Those extras. Yep.
Yeah. So that's when the last time I checked it out before this week for the last call.
Jammer, what about you? How long ago was it you watched it before?
I think it was actually I said a couple years ago. I think that's a lie. I think it was like a year and a half ago when I was in the Midwest. We just pulled out the Blu-rays because I don't have, unfortunately, did not get the DVDs for this, nor do I have access to the despecialized edition. So I had to sit through the Blu-ray back in the day, which was fine. Like it's not ideal, but I feel like Empire is one of the least negatively affected by the special edition stuff.
I mean, I think that's pretty given. I think even though Kyle and I kind of argue about this a little bit, I think you would probably agree, Kyle, that this is the one that is the least affected by the specialization editions. Mm-hmm.
As far as like the Blu-ray stuff, yeah. When it came to the original special edition, I think like all three of the Return of the Jedi's musical number in the original special edition is no good. But yeah, this is definitely the one I think least affected by the Blu-rays. But both 4 and 5 were pretty decent with just the regular 1997 special edition changes.
There were some weird changes. There were some weird changes that I thought were odd that they made, and I don't know if I should make
this movie
them now. To this movie.
Okay.
It was just some weird line changes.
Because which bit are you talking about specifically? If you give us,
it's some stuff in Dagobah.
Okay.
You want to wait?
I don't think there is any changes on Dagobah.
There are. Yeah, there's line changes, very small line changes.
Okay.
In the Dagobah, when R2 gets spit out, originally he says, "You're lucky you don't taste very good," and then in the special edition he says, "You were lucky to get out of there." I don't know why they changed that, but they did.
Do you know? I never.
And there are a couple other little instances like that. Yeah.
Well, if you got them in your notes, we'll get there.
Okay. So, all right. Well, I mean, obviously, Star Wars came out in 1977. Empire Strikes Back came out in 1980, and probably it would be fair to say that no one kind of expected it to capture the same kind of success that the original had. It didn't do as well at the cinema, but I think critically it is pretty much regarded by most people, I'm not saying everyone because everyone's got their own opinion, as the best Star Wars film, and possibly one of the best sequels of all time as well. I mean, another one that you would probably mention would be The Godfather 2 as being a sequel that is as comparable or potentially even greater than the original. So anyway, we go into the theatre in 1980 and boom, Star Wars and its Episode 5, which was the first movie at the cinema that I believe had the episode count on them, because originally A New Hope obviously didn't even have that subtitle, did it? It was just Star Wars. So they kind of went with the whole Episode 5 thing. And we get our classic opening crawl, as always. Any of you guys, any comments you want to make about the opening crawl before we move on?
Yes, there are two things. One, I remember when I got the soundtrack back in the day, I realized there are very, very slight differences between the first, second, and third one, or fourth, fifth, and sixth one. And I just thought it was interesting. This was like the sort of slightly highest pitch one, which I don't know how to describe it other than that. But also, a group of freedom fighters led by Luke Skywalker. Hardly led by Luke Skywalker, mostly led by Leia, which I thought was interesting. He's just kind of a part of it as a high-ranked position. As far as we can tell, he's not really running anything.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. The crawls have never, ever really been incredibly well written. I think we mentioned that on one of the other podcasts. Maybe it was solo because we were talking about
probably Revenge of the Sith because it was so bad.
That one too. Yeah.
It was like war.
Evil is everywhere. You know.
But I mean, it's still an epic moment. The music hits. These words are scrolling through space, and it gets you incredibly pumped.
I remember I felt like I was on crazy pills as a kid because, you know, as a kid, you're around people who don't really care that much about movies as much as you. So as you're watching on VHS and you have apparently the full screen edition, but no one else around you knows what that means, and you don't even know what that means, but you're just like, why? I could have sworn when I saw this in theater that I could actually read all of the lines as they scrolled up, but I can't anymore. And I was so frustrated for the longest time. Like, why is this a problem? Like, how come I was able to... I remember seeing them, but now I just can't until they're like, mostly gone from the screen.
Yeah.
So that was annoying as a kid, and no one else knew. Like, my parents were like, it's the same, it's fine. And my sister was like, yeah, it's the same. And I'm like, you guys are lying to me. I felt like I was being gaslit. But
I always got the widescreen version of movies. Whenever.
I mean,
whenever.
Yeah, that was
possible,
back when I was like
I'm
3 or
young
4,
enough
and
to
you just
remember
have
when you couldn't have widescreen because they just didn't
Yeah.
produce it. And it didn't
Yeah.
exist. And then when you did, it was on a square TV, so it was like letterbox mode.
Yeah, it wasn't until the special edition movies came out, and I saw that. Actually, I think Star Wars may have been the franchise where I realized the difference. Where it was like you have, I think it was the gold full screen and then the silver widescreen, or vice versa.
Correct. Yep.
And I was like, widescreen, full screen, and then I think I asked somebody about what it meant, and then I was like, I guess I'm getting widescreen. I think that was the first one I realized, oh, this is like I remembered in theaters, to where it was able to do this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was cool. So there you go. Star Wars, very integral to my film education.
My friends would always hate watching Star Wars with me because I had the widescreen and they didn't like the letterboxing.
Yeah, your friends are tools.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, definitely widescreen was the way. That's the one I had as well. Actually, I remember about the opening crawl, something I should have mentioned really in the last one for A New Hope, because it was more that one that this story is relevant to. But it actually helped me to learn reading the opening crawl as well. As I've told the story before, I started watching Star Wars and probably The Empire Strikes Back before I can remember being old enough to know that they didn't just always exist and everybody watched them, And I don't know what age I was, but I certainly couldn't read. But my sister was 4 years older than me. She was a big Star Wars fan as well. And whenever we put on A New Hope, she would read it as fast as she could and try and beat it, because she's got a photographic memory, and memorise it so that she could finish it before it went up the front of the screen. And it used to piss me off that I couldn't do it. So it actually helped me learn to read, because that's one of the things that I actively wanted to be able to read so I could compete with her, But anyway, so we have the opening crawl, and obviously Star Wars has this big opening with a grand opening with the ship flying across the screen. But in Empire Strikes Back, it doesn't happen like that. It's far more subtle. The camera pans down. We see this lone Star Destroyer, and as it says in the opening, they're firing probe droids off. So this probe droid comes off and we track it, and eventually we see it landing on Hoth, and we see Luke Skywalker on his Tauntaun, and he radios into, Echo 3 to Echo 7, Hannah, buddy, do you read me? And we're kind of right into the kind of opening scene with Luke and Han. And they say there's no life on the cruiser, they're going to go back, etc, etc. Luke's going to check out that meteorite, and big Wampa comes up and hits him right off his Tauntaun, knocks him unconscious and drags him away. As opening sort of scenes go, any opinions?
I absolutely love what I think is some decent juxtaposition between 4 and 5, and the way that they open, and the situation of the galaxy as it is following A New Hope. You have A New Hope opening up with a very, very exciting, hopeful. You got the ship trying to escape. There's somebody important putting something in these robots to get them away. There's like some mystery and some excitement and like this hopefulness. And even in the beginning, even though you got the Empire, Vader fucking choking a dude in the beginning and stuff. While this one's very much more dour, it's more calm. I mean, your planet, instead of being this hot desert planet, is this ice cold ice planet. And there's a lot of oppression in it versus A New Hope, where you've got the Empire, it's spreading out these droids, the rebels are in hiding. They're, I think it's a really cool way to do both opening, how different they are. I really appreciated it.
You feel like the rebels are on the back foot right away, by the opening crawl, and then the droids coming out. There's this, as you say, oppressive force that's tracking them all across the galaxy, and even hiding in an ice cube, they're not going to really be safe. Jammer, any thoughts on that initial part?
Yeah, I mean, I think to piggyback off of Kyle's, I think it's clear from the get-go that there's a lot of confidence in this one, where they don't necessarily feel the need to one-up the original, but just kind of, all right, we're telling a story differently. We're doing something different with this one. Let's start out with a little more low-key something. We're revisiting our same characters again, so we'll get to see their stories continue, and we're on a different type of planet. So I think it's all about just saying, like, this is going to be different. It's not just going to be more of the same, and it's going to be confident in how it's delivered. And that's kind of what I get for the first few seconds. And, of course, our introduction to the Tauntauns and stop-motion animation, which I think is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we see, obviously, Han heading back into the base, into Echo Base, and he basically goes up to speak to General Riken and tells him, like, that he can't stay any longer. You know, he's still got that price in his head from Jabba the Hutt from the first film, so he's going to have to go and pay him off. And, of course, Riken comes out with the classic line, a death mark's not an easy thing to live with. No shit. You know?
Question.
Yeah.
How come Han couldn't just send like a courier to send all of those that stacks of money that he won?
Well, this was
from
sort of UPS and all that sort of stuff. You've got, remember.
It does clearly say at the beginning a long time ago, Jammer. Jesus.
I mean,
oh, sorry,
my bad. This is more like Kevin Costner and the Postman, I'm imagining transmissions worked at this point, you know. But no, who knows? But maybe Jabba wants to see him sort of face to face. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Would you trust somebody to take the money to Jabba?
Yeah, would you say here a random rebel officer?
A rebel?
Yeah,
or I would say like, okay,
what if Jabba, kills me and says thanks for the money? Psh,
it's like, give me a month, or at least because it seems like how long has it passed between the first and second? Like a couple of years?
Yeah, a couple of years by the time they get the base.
It's like at some point, it's like, hey, can I take a month leave of absence and then go pay off my death? Whatever, to death mark. And
I don't think he has to ask for a leave of absence. I mean, I think he's there voluntarily. He can fuck off whenever he wants. He's just kind of giving General Riken a courtesy because he doesn't want to go. He wants to stay, and you can see that.
Yeah. And he even mentions that, it's almost like maybe he was going to try to get away with not paying off Jabba until he runs into that bounty hunter. He talks about running into a bounty hunter, and I can't remember the planet that he mentions, but there you go. And he maybe that's why. Originally maybe he was like, man, fuck this. I'm with the rebellion now. I'm gonna fucking hold on to my shit. Fuck Jabba. He's not gonna get me. I'm fighting a war. And then this bounty hunter runs into him, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah, you know what? Maybe I should pay him off.
Here's the question: do you think he kept all that money that Leia gave him in the first movie? And he's like, I mean, I'm a hero.
Oh, I assume he did.
But I'm kidding.
I would maybe.
He's still a rogue. And okay, so we then have, obviously Han says he's going to leave. He looks at Leia. He's looking for some sort of reaction from Leia. He says, well, Your Highness, I guess this is it. And she just says, that's right. And he, well, don't get all mushy on me, so long, princess. And he's off. And Leia chases him.
And he has a point. She was being really mushy.
Well, no, she wasn't being mushy. She was, she was being very standoffish, I think, which is the point. And then, of course, she chases him into the corridor, and we have that, which is really a favourite scene of mine. Maybe that's immature kid looking at relationships in a certain way, and to me, that was how you do a man and woman sort of. They kind of feed off each other's. It's the antagonism that they love about each other. That one can give it and the other one can give back out. That's what they love about each other, and they have this obviously argument in the hallway, and Han obviously offers to let Chewie kiss her, etc., etc. What do you guys think of that scene? It is one of my favourites. So.
I think one of the weirdest little quirks I like about the scene is when he looks at her, he's like, come on. And then a guy walks between them and he backs up and he goes, come on. It was just that guy walking between them. It just felt really real in that moment where it's just someone just interrupting their conversation for a brief second.
Han's cockiness is great. I mean, Harrison Ford is just fucking awesome in this scene. And
this is peak Han Solo.
Yeah, he hams it up and delivers his lines it's the epitome of Han Solo. Everything about it. I absolutely love it. He's not a bumbling idiot like he is in Star Wars from Disney.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree that this is peak Han Solo. You know, when I think about Han Solo, this is maybe one of the scenes I think about. And for me, it's Ford's second best movie, best movie. This and Raiders for me, for Ford, is absolutely classic. And I think just Ford works so well when he's got a female lead to combat with, somebody, you know, not someone that just kind of plays the normal damsel in distress, but someone who kind of stands up to themselves a little bit. And I think Fisher does a really good job here. However, it's probably worth mentioning, it's not clear from the script, but there is a rumour that the whole "come on" was because Fisher was a little bit stoned when she was shooting that. And he was kind of prompting the line. That's why he says it again, "come on," and then she says, "You're imagining things," and then he kind of moves on. But it was just, you know, a kind of bit of an ad-lib, and Kershner liked it and left it in. And of course there is famously a few other bits like that occur in this film as well, as rumour would have it anyway, shall we say.
Well, it worked.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Han stomps off, and the next thing we see is that 3PO and R2 are heading over looking for Han again, and he's turned off his communicator because he doesn't want to talk to Leia, and she's looking for Master Luke because he's not appeared back. Obviously, we as the audience know that that's because he's been wampified at the moment, but no one else knows that. So Han then starts getting to find out what's going on, and we get the classic deck officer, and 3PO's trying to talk to him the whole time. He covers 3PO's mouth. He asks the guy to go and sort of check. 3PO, I think, asks something like, was it, "Excuse me, sir, might I inquire what's going on?" And Han says, "Why not?" and just walks away. And that's it. So and then we kind of move through, and the deck officer comes back, speaks to Han, finds out nobody's heard from Skywalker. Han jumps in his Tauntaun because the speeders won't work in the cold, and he heads out basically looking for Luke. Any thoughts on this part?
I do want to say 3PO is probably the thing I'm missing most in the sequel trilogy. He has been a great source of comic relief in A New Hope, and especially in Empire Strikes Back. I even like the scene where Han's, you know, he's talking to one of the techs or one of the military members, and 3PO's sitting there yapping at him, and he covers 3PO's mouth.
Yeah.
Which really doesn't make too much sense for a droid that, you know, his audio comes from a speaker. Even if you cover his mouth, you're still going to be able to hear it. It's just a really funny moment. Anthony Daniels, his voice work is great, and his body language is actually really good. As stiff as 3PO is, there's so much that's conveyed there, and I think this is sorely missing from the sequel trilogy. I know they wanted to bring in new droids for toys and stuff.
I agree with you. I think 3PO.
I miss 3PO.
3PO
man.
and R2. You know, there's a couple of things about R2 I'll mention later on for this film as well, but I think if anything was going to carry on, I know they had to go in a new character direction, I totally understand that, but the linkage, the tissue that connects everything together is 3PO and R2, and they've kind of been sidelined in this trilogy so far.
I gotta disagree with you guys. I mean, I think he's great in here, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like I'm ready to see new things. You know, I'm okay with them being sidelined for the most part. And in fact, I think they're having R2 present, considering how little he does. Like, if you're gonna have him there, have him do something. I'm okay with them just not being around because I'm ready to move on to see some new things.
I get that, but you know, when you've had 6 episodes where the droids are pretty central to everything, and then in the final episode, droids who don't age, you know, does it make sense? Should it not have been more that? Would it not have made more sense for Rey to get R2? You know, like kind of thing, because that's the way it worked. Like Anakin was R2, then it passed to Luke, then it passes to Rey because she's the new. You know, would that not have had a bit more synergy to it? You could have still had BB-8 in that part, but by the time they get back to the Rebel base, they could have switched it up with R2. Then at that point, you could still have had BB-8 as a character without having to completely sideline R2 and make everything about BB-8. Would that, you know?
I'm just a weird Star Wars fan. Like I was like, I've had my fill. These guys have fulfilled their purpose. Let's do new things. But I understand that I'm weird. So yeah.
Okay.
Well, at least you know.
So anyway, after Han heads off, we see Luke in the cave, and we have it's pretty much a classic scene this where, you know, the lightsaber's just out of reach, and Luke reaches down, and the Force theme kicks in, you know, doo-doo-doo, and he reaches out his hand, and it's the first time we have really seen the Jedi use telekinesis. So this is a new skill we're learning now, and Luke pulls the lightsaber out the ground, cuts the ice above his feet, cuts the arm off the Wampa, and then probably should have killed it, stayed in, kept warm, but, you know, he's in shock, so, you know, he just, but what would you do in that situation? People would just go, I need to get out of here. You're not thinking that, oh, the environment outside really lethal and I shouldn't go out. You're just thinking, get me out of this cave as quickly as possible, you know, at that point. But it happens anyway. Obviously, in the special edition, this scene was a little bit longer and we saw a few more shots of the Wampa. Does anyone think that improved the movie in any way whatsoever?
I don't think it takes away from it. I know a lot of people that are like, oh, it's scarier when you don't see the monster. That's one of the changes in the special edition that I was 100% okay with. I think seeing the monster is as good as not seeing the monster.
Yeah, they're good. They're good in their own respective way, and I don't know if one is better than the other. It just depends on personal taste.
Yeah, There is a moment later on I'm going to talk about monsters where I'll completely disagree with that. But in this particular one, I didn't feel it particularly added or took anything away. It just was, if that makes sense. So,
yep.
So then obviously Luke heads outside, and we cut back to Echo Base, and you know the Leia, Chewie, 3PO and R2, they're all standing at the doors. Leia gets told the doors have to be shut. She kind of nods in sullen agreement. And we see the doors shutting sort of closely as we're focused on Chewbacca, and we see the doors in the background, and as they shut, he lets out this big howl. And then 3PO comes up with his odds for the first time, which is the first time it happens in the film, but then this then becomes a running theme, like a little subplot almost, running throughout the film is 3PO and his odds. And at this point he says it's R2. I can't remember what he says the odds are actually off the top of my head. But
he has been known to make mistakes.
Yeah, he does. He has been known to make mistakes from time to time. You know, and he feels quite kind of sad about it, and he's like, oh dear. And he says, oh, I'm sure Master Luke will be alright, etc, etc. But I really liked the way they shot that with the doors shutting and Chewie sort of letting out that scream just as the doors shut. It was a kind of really nice touch, I thought. And then we cut straight back to Luke again, and this is our Luke, you will go to the Dagobah system. Dagobah system? There you will learn from Yoda, the Jedi Master who instructed me.
But he did it.
And
you know what I thought was funny for me is the situation where he clearly Ben says you will go to the Dagobah system, and he goes Dagobah system. It's like, no, I didn't say it like that. I said Dagobah system. Why are you taking liberties with the pronunciation already? 5 seconds after I said it.
Robot Chicken, they probably have spotted that one as well. But yeah, what I really did like though is as Ben sort of fades, that's when Han comes into the picture. And, you know, he's like, oh, don't do this, Luke. You know, he sees he's in a bad way, etc. And Luke's just delirious, coming out with random words like, Yoda, Dagobah, you know, and all that sort of stuff.
I just love that. It's so creepy when he's being stuffed into the Tauntaun. He's like, Yoda, Yoda,
I'm coming. Oh. And obviously that was, I thought that was really ingenious though, you know, the idea, he takes the lightsaber, slices it open and shoves Luke inside. It's horrible, it's disgusting. But it's going to keep him warm. It will actually keep him warm. I thought that was a really inventive way to deal with the fact that the Tauntaun had just died anyway. You know, it's not as if Han just went, sorry old buddy, chopped the head off and then shoved Luke inside. And do you know what I always remember? The toys. If you bought a toy Tauntaun, it had a plastic rubbery flap at the bottom so you could shove figures inside of it, which was really quite creepy. And you know, you could get Yoda all the way inside. Just saying. Anyway,
interesting.
And then obviously Han appears. He kind of rescues Luke, starts building the shelter, and then we cut to the next day, and Rogue 2 is out. Well, the Rogue group are out in their speeders. They're all looking for Han and Luke. Rogue 2 obviously just happens to head the right way. And they start sending out the signal, Rogue 2, and Han comes back, morning, nice of you guys to drop by. Rogue 2 sends back, I found them, repeat, I found them. And then we kind of see them flying by. You see Han with the shelter and everything like that, and then before we know it, Luke's back, he's in the back to a tank. Han's, Leia, they're all there looking along, make sure he's okay. He comes out alive, and then we have the little discussion that they have in the kind of hospital bed area between our three main leads, which is the first time we've seen the three of them together in this film so far. And, Han and Leia obviously have their classic nerf herder argument. What do you guys think of this kind of sequence of events?
Go ahead, Jammer.
Nothing in particular, to be honest. Like, yeah, it moves things forward. I guess this is where she kisses him, which is weird. Yeah, that's weird.
I'm getting to that. But...
Oh, so we're not there yet.
No,
okay.
no, we are there. That's the bit we're at. But yeah, I was waiting to hear what you guys thought first. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there's nothing really special I could say about this particular segment, other than him in the tank. It just reminds me now of Dragon Ball Z, but that's about it.
It's an important scene to help move things along, and like I said, get our characters together and set up some stuff that's going to pay off in the future. I've always wondered, and I'm sure the truth is out there somewhere, or at least the alleged truth is out there somewhere. Yeah. But does anybody really think Lucas had always planned on Leia being his sister?
I do, and I'm going to prove it to you through 4 or 5 points in this film. In the last film we talked about how that there was some little clues that Darth Vader was really Luke's father, and we kind of talked about them as we went through. I think there's even more clues in this film that show you that they'd always thought of Leia. So one of the first...
I don't think so. But I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it.
Come up with, all right?
But I do want to say something I just really remembered. Where Luke is all cut up. There's that urban legend, because obviously this is after Mark Hamill got in that car accident, and people are talking about, they had to work this into the script because of the car accident. It changed his face slightly and stuff. Do you guys know if that's at all true, or if that was just urban legend, or what's up with that? Because
as far as I know, that's just an urban legend. It was in the kind of initial script anyway. It's just, it was never
kind of worked out
supposed
beneficial.
to be an excuse. I think they were just going with the fact Luke looks different. End of story. That's it, kind of thing. But as you say, probably Jammer, it's probably one of those things that you never kind of truly know. Especially with the fact that Lee Brackett obviously died in 1978, and we don't know which kind of version. I think I've read her version of the script, and I believe that scene was already in there, or there was something like that to do with the kind of wampas. But I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I've read that. So for me, a lot of people say that this is kind of incesty when Leia kisses Luke. I think they're playing it that way the whole time along. I don't think it looks as if there's any chemistry between them. She doesn't kiss him in a kind of longing way. When you compare this to the kiss that her and Han have later, she grabs his face and plants a big smacker on it, a hard one, for a set amount of time, and then gets up and walks away. And there's no emotion at all, and looks just completely surprised. And then when he kind of sits back, it never feels to me like, oh, she's kissed me, she likes me better than Han, which is kind of something that I think they were playing with, and certainly they played that dynamic between the three in the first movie. But he just kind of sits back as if I've got one over in Han here, do you know what I mean, in a kind of smug manner. I don't think it looks as if they're trying for that kind of three-way romance thing at all. Well, but that's not the main evidence I've got, but that's just my opinion on that. But.
Yeah, I don't think her kiss definitely is not meant to be romantic. It's just meant to piss off Han. But I think Luke at that moment was like, he's a little bit younger than Han and a little bit, I mean, shit, look what he just went through. I think he is kind of like, oh yeah, that was great. Not just lording it over Han, but kind of like, oh yeah, she's more into me than you. I think Luke believes that, but she was just doing it to piss Han off. She's obviously gunning or her heart is gunning for Han from the get-go. So
yeah, I'm with Kyle on this one. I think yeah, that definitely was a spiteful kiss from her, but Luke was probably into it.
I don't think so, but again, I need to present the evidence for later on, so we'll get to that. So we then, they hear that thing, important personnel to the command area, and they all go through and they found the probe droid, and 3PO says he's fluent in 6 million forms of communication. This definitely isn't a rebel code. It must be Imperial. Han and Chewie offer to go and check it out. Han shoots the battle droid, it blows up. He says, it must have been Leia assumes it must be an Imperial probe droid because it had a self-destruct. Han says, there's a good bit the Empire knows we're here. They're going to start the evacuation, and then we cut to, which I'll
really quick. I want to talk about that
Yep.
line really quick. It's a good bet the Emperor knows we're here.
Yep.
I think it's telling. It shows how young I was when I first saw this movie, because that line confused me for a while when he says it's a good bet, because I definitely read it as him saying it's a good thing the Empire knows we're here, and I was very confused for the longest time as to why that was a good thing.
I was confused by something in that as well, because I thought he was saying umpire because of just the way he says empire. And as a very young child we're talking about here, I thought he was talking about something completely different from the Empire, but that's maybe just a British thing because he was American, and it was the way he said it.
Right.
But anyway, obviously, one of the things I want to point out before we get to the next part, which obviously we'll want to talk about, is that at this point the movies took 20 minutes, right? So we're 20 minutes into the movie and the Empire are really just showing up now at this point. The pace of the film, I think, is electric. Empire Strikes Back. If you imagine all the events that we've gone through so far, and everything that's actually, it's set us up, it's given us all that exposition we need to find out what the situation is. They've introduced the speeders, they've introduced the relationship between Han and Leia, they've introduced the whole plot about Luke to go to Dagobah, and we've had quite a little bit of action, tension, all that sort of stuff as well, and there's only 20 minutes into the movie. That's pretty tight writing, you've got to admit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
Absolutely.
So we then get to the Imperial March, and it's the first time we've ever heard this particular piece of music from Mr. Williams. It's got to be one of his best tracks ever, right?
Oh yeah,
It's
and
one
it
of the most
fits
iconic
so
for
well
sure.
with showing the Imperial fleet and the reveal of the executor, however you want to fucking say
Yeah,
it.
like the
I can never remember
shadows.
which one to go with.
Is it shit
Yeah.
over shadows, the
It's a
small ones?
Chilling scene.
Yeah. And we then get into the Empire a little bit, and this is one of the points I wanted to make about The Last Jedi as well, Jammer, excuse me. But in this scene where we see Admiral Ozzel, he's reluctant to kind of look at this information that Captain Piet's come up with. Vader just kind of storms down, you found something, that's it, the rebels are there, no doubt about it, deployed, etc, etc. And Ozzel's like really pissed off, and he's looking at Captain Piet as if to say, I'll get you back for this one, you fucker, And to me, that kind of explains the dynamic of how the Empire works. It's that, it's people are incompetent sometimes, but they're not jokingly incompetent. It's just that when somebody doesn't do well, they're pretty much going to get killed, and the next person will take the place. It's very much the way the kind of power struggle worked in Nazi Germany, which Hitler promoted. And of course, the Empire are based a lot on that kind of Nazi mentality. So, and it was that thing where if you kill the person higher up, then well done, you've done well, you're ruthless, you get to be in charge now. And if you compare that to the bumbling First Order officers that we see in The Last Jedi, how does that match up? I don't get it. When you look at what you're seeing there in Empire Strikes Back, yes, they're incompetent, you can see why they don't win, but they're not bumbling idiots. Whereas in The Last Jedi, they're shown to be bumbling idiots. I can't excuse that. Jammer?
All right. I mean, I don't know. I have to watch The Last Jedi again in order to sort of get your aspects across. I can't really talk about it right now, but yeah.
We'll
I mean, maybe you're not completely wrong. Jedi, it's definitely played more for laughs, for sure.
Yeah.
In The Last Jedi. But I don't really have a problem with that because I'd have to watch it again, to be honest.
I think Disney kind of looked at some of the stuff that was and type of humor that's successful in Marvel, and because I mean, let's face it, when they were like, we're going to do a Star Wars movie every year, that was also in my mind inspired by Marvel Studios' success of doing movies every year, and I think they were just aiming for that. And like a lot of things, you can't copy what Marvel Studios does. It doesn't work for everybody.
I don't think that was it. I think that was all Rian Johnson. I don't think Disney came in and said, you need to add more jokes here, because the way the quote-unquote bumbliness of the way General Hux is portrayed isn't just added jokes. It's kind of a crux of his character in that movie, to be honest.
A crux for Hux? No, sorry.
Crux for Hux. It's a crux for Hux. So no, I don't think that was a result. That wasn't Disney, I think, coming in. I don't think it was Disney coming in and saying, add jokes here.
I still say, for me, that kind of humour where it's obvious humour doesn't really work. I mean, Empire Strikes Back, although it's probably the darkest Star Wars film, is also one of the funniest Star Wars films, but it's not like, it's not laugh out loud funny. It's that where you have a wry smile funny, and I think that's comedy in Star Wars. You're not. Whereas I'll go to a Marvel movie and there's bits where I'll literally laugh out loud in the cinema. I don't think I expect that from a Star Wars film, and when somebody tries to elicit that response from me, it kind of falls flat. Does that make sense?
I kind of get what you're saying.
I get what you're saying, for sure.
Different types of humors.
Yeah, I think I disagree with the things that work for me, from a humor perspective, and I also think I'm more forgiving as to the things that I accept from movies. I think you're looking to sort of recapture a specific style, whereas I'm okay with things expanding into different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. It's just a different perspective.
Yeah.
I do want to point out one really great thing in this. Vader's not a military guy. He doesn't hold any rank. He's essentially like a glorified and very scary advisor, and he's there because he's got the Force and he can sense things, feel things. He's the Emperor's, point guy between the military and the Emperor himself. But when Vader gives the Admiral and General Veers orders, General Veers goes to his Admiral first and asks him, basically, should I follow? He goes, sir. He looks at him.
And he gets the nod off as well.
Exactly. I really love, maybe it's the military in me, but I actually really love that part. That's a really cool attention to detail that there is some
ain't no way Oz will say no, though. I mean, Oz will know who's in charge, but...
Yeah, of the way that military, civilian military advisors would work, and I really like that scene.
Yeah.
Is he a civilian military advisor, considering he works directly underneath the Emperor?
Basically. I mean, he has no rank. I mean, even in all the expanded lore, he still has no rank.
Right. Yeah. He doesn't need a rank, though, does he? I mean, his presence makes, apart from when the Emperor's there, I mean, the Emperor's got no rank, but there's no doubt who's in charge, it's that kind of thing, I think, but...
Yeah.
And this is like a very personal mission to Vader as well, we have to understand that. I mean, although we don't quite fully realise why at this point, he is away off searching for the rebels, that's his excuse, but he's looking for Luke Skywalker.
Skywalker will be with them.
That's what he's looking for. And the Emperor doesn't know that yet either, which is pretty key. Anyway, so we then, cut back to the Rebel base and everybody's getting ready to escape, and, the Millennium Falcon's falling to bits still, which again is a good thing to kind of let us know what's the state of play is for when we then get into the next scene and the Millennium Falcon's not working well. They do a couple of things that set that up really kind of subtly and well. And then everybody sort of gets ready and Leia gives her speech and everything like that. And then we cut back to
I love the fact that when the guy says 2 fighters against a Star Destroyer, and she just completely ignores him and continues talking.
Yeah. And we get we cut back to obviously the Empire again, and Ozzel has come out of Lightspeed, unfortunately too close to the system, and General Veers is the one that's sent down to tell Lord Vader. Lord Vader looks him up in the view screen and chokes the life out of him and immediately promotes Admiral Piet. And I love the little bit where like the guy who's working the console, who's looking the other way, as Ozzel drops to the ground, just kind of looks up at the view screen and goes like, oh fuck, and looks away again. I think that was classic. So Ozzel is gone, Admiral Piet is now in charge. And then we get to the whole ion cannon bit. So the ion cannon blasts away, makes up some space for the first rebel transport to escape, and they announce the first transport has escaped, is away. That's it, and they all start cheering. And actually, that's one of my favourite little bits, because it's the way the music builds up throughout that as well. It feels like actually a heroic moment that this ship's managed to get away, and everybody's really happy that it's kind of happened. We then get obviously Luke getting ready. He jumps into his fighter. He tells him. Dak says that he thinks he can take on the whole Empire himself, and Luke's like, I know what you mean. And then we get into I know Dak's poor old Dak. And then we see the walkers for the first time really, and we actually see them as we look through the binoculars. The guy looks through the binoculars and he has to kind of zoom out to see the kind of full shape of these walkers, and then we get Imperial walkers have been spotted. And we get into the first kind of action scene on Hoth, or the first kind of part of the action scene, certainly to do with the walkers. Can you remember what you thought about those walkers kind of when you watched it at first, when you were kids?
As the coolest fucking things ever. Yeah,
as a kid it's really cool. Grown up, it's a little different, because you're like, ice planet fucking thing with legs, are you stupid?
Also, walk so slow. Like, why walk so slow when you have these ships zipping around them? Wouldn't it be quicker just to send a whole bunch of ships to just
like low flying
on the base?
hovering ships or something like that to just roll in there? But we wouldn't have got, of course, the famous next scene that we're going to kind of get to if we didn't have walkers with legs. And would we have traded that off for something that actually made a bit more sense? Fuck, we wouldn't, because obviously when Dak gets killed, obviously, oh sorry Dak, but I always kind of thought when he flies off as well, he seems pretty green as well. He's like, look, I don't have an attack vector, I'm not set, and I just kind of sometimes I expect Luke to say, fuck's sake Dak, get your head in the game. And obviously Dak is going to take the shot, and he gets took out. Dak, he's gone. Sorry, Dak. So
I still held out that he would be living, and then when he got crushed, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think as a kid, I thought that at first as well. It was actually probably still alive, and then see the bit when he does crash. I know we've not kind of got to that, but I kind of, when he's reaching in, I kind of think he's reaching in to get Dak, but he doesn't. He's like, nope, I need this.
He gets his lightsaber.
This shit. See you, Dak, and Dak's crushed. Goodbye. Oh well.
I think it was just Robot Chicken.
At that point. Look, I've come away. Can you help me?
Yeah, I think it was Robot Chicken that makes a joke about a walker stepping on a rebel soldier and having to wipe it off like if he stepped in dog poo.
So obviously we get he decides that Wedge needs to take a shot, and we get this classic scene where Jansen takes a shot. Good shot, Jansen. Takes a shot, and Wedge goes round about. We all know what happens. He takes down the walker with the rope.
It's amazing how when you trip a walker, it becomes instantly combustible.
Yes.
Well, internally, when it fell down, all its plating would have buckled and everything like that. This is factual, right? If something like
I like how you're trying to justify
from that height, all the plating inside, most of the people
there's
would be
some
dead.
legitimate justification there, but it is still a stretch.
Going on in there.
Those are some hardcore mental gymnastics there. It's fine.
I
have no problem with it. No, I have no problem with it. It's a great movie. It's great cinema, but it doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't make sense.
If you can make it make sense in your head canon, it's fine. If you look at it and you're sitting thinking about it going, I can find no reason for this, it takes you out of the film. If it doesn't take you out of the film, who cares? You know? Can Dwayne Johnson do half the shit he does in his films? No, but it doesn't necessarily take you out of the film. You know?
Yeah, like I can get this because I agree with Cam. You know, it does make sense if armor takes a big physical hit, then it does weaken, and that's easy to play off. But what I can't understand is why you can't send faster, smaller ships after a giant, slower ship in The Last Jedi. That I cannot wrap my head around in any way whatsoever.
This is something I was going to mention at a different part of this, but yeah, this is another issue of mine with The Last Jedi as well, is the chase mechanic, but I was kind of figuring we'll get to that at the asteroid chase, which is to me the perfect sort of juxtaposition of of the two.
I can see that.
Anyway, one thing I actually forgot to mention, there's a nice little scene before this action sequence starts between Han and Luke, where they just look at each other. And it's poignant because that's the last time those two characters see each other until really the sail barge on Tatooine in Return of the Jedi. They don't see each other again up until that point. And when you think about it that way, it's a nice little kind of scene they have where they don't say anything, they just kind of nod at each other and say to each other, be careful. Anyway, so one of the walkers is down. At this point, the rebel base is getting pretty smashed up, and Han goes in and he wants to get Leia out. And he says to her, come on, that's it. And I love the way he walks forward, she walks the other way, so they kind of keeps missing her. And then finally is Imperial troops have entered the base, Imperial troops have static. And he says, that's it, come with me. And then we kind of quickly cut back to Luke doing his next heroic bit, which is, using his hook thing to fly up, cut open the bottom, throw in the bomb, jumps down, blows up another kind of walker. What do you think of that sort of sequence of Luke sort of solo taking down a walker? Kyle?
I think it's fun. I absolutely love the robot chicken. I know I bring it up a lot doing these, but I love how in Robot Chicken it's the bathroom. He tosses the bomb into the bath. There's a stormtrooper taking a shit, and I love to think that's really what happened because it's fucking hilarious. The whole ice battle is great. I mean, it's one of the best combat scenes in the entire series. It really is. Yeah. It's very thrilling. It's very exciting. And Luke's heroics are cool, even though he did leave Dak to get stepped on. So.
Because he was dead already.
I know, but leave no man behind.
And here's another point I've got before we kind of get off Hoth. This is one of my kind of Leia theories, right? So, when Darth Vader comes into the base, he doesn't know where Luke Skywalker is, right? But you see him, and one of the things I love about the score as well is how they keep jumping between the kind of the actiony kind of music and then the Imperial as Han's trying to get the ship going, and Leia's saying, would it help if I got out and pushed? And it kind of really adds. I think that's where you fall in love with the Falcon, because it's broken to bits, but it still always makes it through. That's what gives the ship character. I think we fell in love with the Falcon as an icon from The Empire Strikes Back, not from Star Wars, where it kind of did everything it was supposed to do. Does that make sense? That it gave it
makes
some
sense,
character.
But it does, but I remember being very annoyed with the Falcon as a kid in this movie.
Why?
I was like, just fucking work. Just work.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
It adds to the tension.
But anyway, as we're kind of cutting back and forth to that, there's a point where Vader stops and the troops stop behind him and he looks left and he looks right and he turns right and starts walking towards where the Falcon is. Is Vader looking for the Falcon at that point? Is he looking for Princess Leia? Is he looking for Han Solo? No, he's looking for Luke Skywalker. So why does he make that turn to the right? Because Leia's there and he's sensing Leia.
It's a good point. I always kind of took it as him when he's looking around that he's definitely reaching out for Luke, and why he went to a certain direction, I always just kind of pawned it off to he just sensed that's where people are left. And not necessarily that it's Luke or anything, but maybe somebody that could send him to Luke. But I do like your theory. Yeah. I accept it.
Because
I think that's a very good point.
Obviously, at this point, he then believes from this point that Luke is in the Millennium Falcon. Agreed, or else why does he chase the Millennium Falcon and ignore everyone else?
That's true.
Why?
That's a good point. Jammer, have you ever looked at it that way?
What? That he thinks that Luke's in there?
No,
that.
No, I've always
Leia.
That's why
he senses Leia, but thinks it's Luke.
Yeah, does he sense someone in there?
Well, he turns that way. The Falcon escapes. Luke goes away on his, in his X-wing. He pisses off to Dagobah. The entire Imperial fleet ignores all the other people that are escaping and only chases the Millennium Falcon. Why? Because Vader must believe Luke Skywalker's on that ship. Why does he believe he's on that ship? Because he's sensing Princess Leia, his other child.
Yeah, that's all. That's all. That's you're. I don't think so. I don't know why they actually. Honestly, the last time I watched it was the first time I thought, wait, why are they chasing the Falcon? Like I've watched this thing a million times, and I was just like, for the first time, I realized there's no good reason for them to be wasting that much resource and manpower on the Falcon. So yeah, actually, I came in here wondering that question, but no, I never thought about him sensing anyone. We never got the exposition.
Right? Or sorry, point two of my theory. So there is other things to add to this later on as well.
But at what point does he realize that Luke isn't on the Falcon? Because by the time he gets to, by the time Boba Fett mentions, hey, they're headed towards Bespin, still Vader doesn't know that Luke's gone to Dagobah or anything.
He doesn't know till the Falcon arrives.
He doesn't know, but he doesn't even ask about it. He doesn't ask about Luke. He doesn't like. He's not like, oh, where's Luke? He's not here.
Right. That what I'm getting at is, at what point does he realize that he needs to set a trap for Luke Skywalker versus
not till the Falcon arrives? Because remember,
so you think
everything that we'll get to that, but the thing he does with Han, Leia, that's him understanding the Force and knowing that if he does something now, Luke senses that in the past. That's why he tortures Han. It's the only he's torturing Han to get Luke. But Luke senses it much earlier, before that's even happened, before they've even got to Bespin. But I don't think at any point does Vader know that Luke's not on that until they actually show up. And they'd be watching who gets out, who's all there, and everything like that, before they can do anything with it. Anyway, we then have, we get into the Asteroid Sequence, which is one of my favourite chase scenes. The Falcon's still not working. I love the music. It's brilliant. And when you compare this to like the Asteroid Sequence in Attack of the Clones with Obi-Wan and Jango Fett, the CGI one, it doesn't feel as real, does it? See, we know that they filmed that with literally like fucking potatoes on strings flying about and actually got model ships to go through that, and it feels like a really chaotic asteroid field. It feels dangerous, as if at any point a rock's just going to come out of somewhere and smash them to bits, and some of the TIE fighters that does happen to. Obviously the hyperdrive isn't working. They're all trying to fix it. They notice the asteroids. They start, I think he sits there and goes, should we sit 271? And Leia's like, what? You're not actually going into the asteroid field, are you? And again, we get 3PO giving the odds, and Han's like, never tell me the odds, and they start flying through. And they eventually, it's just them left, and there's two kind of guys following them, and he says he's going to go closer to one of the big ones, and everybody's like, closer? And he flies in, does a nice bit of kind of fancy flying, gets rid of the two TIE fighters. The music changes to the Han and Leia theme again, lovely as they kind of arc up and go down, go through the tunnel, and the music changes again, which is really, really good, to kind of like a darker theme, because they're kind of getting into this spooky tunnel. And then we're back on kind of the next scene again. So what do you guys think of the whole asteroids chase sequence?
It's a great sequence. Absolutely fun.
Fun, great. I think it's one of the best. I think it might be my favorite track in the soundtrack.
Right.
The asteroid theme. Like it's hard for me to even think of.
Definitely, yep.
It's hard for me to even compare it to the Empire theme though, because Empire I feel like is so pervasive and stuff to the point where it's almost not just a part of this movie, even though it did originate in this movie.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
yeah, but yeah, great sequence. I like seeing the continued shape of the Millennium Falcon being used to its advantage and like dodging through thin places, and yeah, I just like the fact that our characters are really capable and smart, even though the Falcon is up shit creek.
Yeah, it's falling to bits, isn't it? You know, but as I say, that's for me what gives it a bit of charm. That's what I love about it. It is literally a big hunk of junk, but it still beats the Empire at every turn. Our next sequence is Luke on Dagobah, but it's basically him crashing, landing. He's in the fog. The controls are all out. He crashes. R2 falls. It's the part you were talking about where the dialogue changed earlier on, Jammer. So
yeah,
I don't know why they would change that. To be perfectly honest with you, it really doesn't make much sense, does it? It doesn't. Seem like something that
it's weird.
Should have changed in any way. It doesn't change the way that scene worked or anything like that. And obviously R2 gets attacked by something, and this to me is the kind of argument for not seeing the monster. Now, if you know anything about the film and Empire Strikes Back, that was literally a wooden board with just the back built in, so it looked like the back of some kind of fish, and they just moved it up and pushed it back down again. There was no actual animal built underneath. But you kind of think, see if that was the prequels, that would have been some big thing with a million tentacles that would have jumped out and swallowed R2 whole, isn't it? You know, and sometimes that less is more. I think it was scarier because your imagination then made up what the rest of that animal looked like because you never saw the back. It's the Jaws effect for me.
But I think it's a little less. Kind of going back to the Wampa situation for me. I like seeing the Wampa, and it's less annoying to me in the Wampa case showing it because it's not like Luke sees it, but I want to see it because he's seeing it. Whereas in the swamp, you can't see it because it's covered, so I'm okay with not seeing it, and I'm okay with the imagination stuff. But with something like the Wampa, I think I'd prefer to see it because Luke saw it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like time and a place, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
In that situation, it was better not to see it because then Luke does, as you say, Luke doesn't know what it looks like either. He's got to use his imagination too. So obviously R2 spits out some dirt and everything like that, and then we cut to, you know, the Imperials kind of looking through space and everything like that. The Admiral comes to speak to Vader, and this is really an important scene because when Admiral comes to see Vader and the kind of thing is lifting up, we see the helmet coming on just for a second, which we didn't see the first time, and we can see a little bit of Darth Vader, the back of his head. And at this point as an audience, that's your first kind of clue that Darth Vader is something more than just a robot, because you really didn't know that, did you? If you were kind of going through the first film to this point, as far as you know, he could have been a robot. You didn't even know he was a man. You know, so to know that there's something horrible and scarred under there, it's kind of scary and mysterious at the same time. Agree? Disagree?
I never got scary and mysterious. For me, I was just like gross as a kid. It was like he's gross. That was that childish.
Doesn't it make you want to know more though?
As an adult, it does, but as a kid, it's just gross.
Right. Well, we are adults. We can talk about.
No, yeah, we're adults. I mean, it's hard. Like I said, it's hard for me to. It's really hard for me to go back and to sort of imagine how I would feel if I'd seen it for the first time as an adult. Absolutely, as an adult, I look at him like, holy shit, what happened to this guy? Like, first of all, he's human. Second of all, he's not in very good shape. So much so that he has to constantly retreat to his little hyperbolic whatever chamber and do whatever he does. But yeah, it does definitely fill the imagination with like what happened to him. And imagine, I didn't feel like we needed to see this prequel. Just saying.
But it's not so much that we didn't need to see them, it was that when we did see them, they were absolute shit. I think that was...
I don't think we needed to see them.
I don't know. Unless if somebody presented me a much better version and I went, fuck yeah, that's actually really interesting, I want to see that. It would have been nice to see kind of a real serious drama about how this hero turned to darkness, you know what I mean? But that's really not what the prequel trilogies present you with at all. It's all pretty tropey.
I would easily get rid of the prequel trilogy completely. Just erase it from all existence, given the choice. If it was like you can either erase it or replace it, I would erase it and not replace it. It would just
assume
be gone.
you agree, Jam, or you would erase, not replace.
Yeah, probably, because I like the idea of the imagination, and I've been one of those people who've been annoyed by Disney's tendency to go back to things we already know about. Like, I didn't need Rogue One, I didn't need Solo, I didn't want a Boba Fett movie. I did these things that I've imagined that I really don't need to be seen on screen in any way, shape, or form, and it just adds to it that there are all these aspects that are unexplored that are hinted at. I think it's just much stronger storytelling and much more confident storytelling that you don't feel the need to explain every little thing.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, I think sometimes they go too far with it. I think Kyle and I would agree with that. But then we were really quite fans of Rogue One, despite the fact that they probably did do a little bit too much fan service in some places. But sometimes fan service can work as well, you know. And what that, to us as sort of Star Wars people, it's just a fun movie, Rogue One. You know, it just kind of works.
I like the style and tone of Rogue One. I just did not... They really did not do very good with some of the plot stuff, and the main character.
I know you have serious issues with that. Yeah.
She did nothing. She had no agency. She was just being bobbed along the entire way, and there was they didn't really do a good job justifying anything that she did. There's just so many problems with that movie. But I can understand from a fan's point of view being like, oh, this is the thing. Oh, this is the thing. Oh, this is the thing.
Okay. Well, one of the things I wanted to mention about this sequence as well is obviously when Vader is interrupted, he says, "Asteroids do not concern me, Admiral. I want that ship, not excuses." And this kind of leads me back to the whole, we said we'd kind of talk about it when we got to the asteroid sequence, the whole TLG chase thing. You kind of get this urgency from Vader throughout that he will I don't know, he will put 8 lambs to the slaughter. He will, cannon fodder to his heart's content to get that ship. He doesn't really care. He's never going to turn around and say, oh, the Millennium Falcon's fast. Let's back up a little bit. We can't protect Jew fighters from this range. Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of what it felt like that Rian Johnson did in order to set up his situation in The Last Jedi. It's a perfect example of...
What do you mean exactly?
So, he said, they're running out of fuel, but they can't go to hyperspace, but they're just a little bit too fast for us to kind of support our fighters properly. And it didn't make any sense because the fighters could fly out, I'm running out of fuel, I'll just head back to the ship again. But here, Vader's chasing the fastest ship in the galaxy through asteroid fields, and he's just sending ship after him. He doesn't care, People say, oh, we have to worry about asteroids. He's like, I don't give a fuck about asteroids. Get me that ship, That feels
but I also feel like it does feel better, but if things had turned out differently and he ended up basically destroying God knows how many ships and crippling that aspect of the Empire, you would think the opposite.
I don't think he would care.
Yeah, but...
I know he wouldn't care, but as an audience, that would just be like, he just fucking threw an entire group of ships that all got destroyed and nothing came of it.
But wouldn't
my point is that if it did
the same thing,
it only
wouldn't Snoke feel the same thing? This is all they need to do is destroy them, and that's it. He's won. Would he not be just like, I don't care, go, attack, destroy this ship?
Maybe, but I mean, Snoke and Hux aren't Vader.
No. I know.
Yeah.
That's certainly not Hux. He's not likely to do anything interesting like that. Anyway.
I feel like it's difficult because you're literally comparing one of the greatest villains in film history to, a different group of people. And I don't feel like it's fair to say, like, hey, because Vader did this, they should definitely do this as well.
Well, I mean, I think the First Order has a huge, and I know we'll discuss this all over again in Last Jedi, but the First Order has a massive amount of ships compared to what the Resistance has left. It is one of the most infuriating things about The Last Jedi is nothing makes sense. There's not even if the Resistance puts up a good fight, there's still plenty of First Order ships. It's not gonna be a a loss. They would not sustain heavy losses against what they were going. It doesn't make any sense to set up that chase that way. They needed to do something else.
And it's just plain straight. And, Vader would have said, calculate their destination along the last known trajectory, and then bang in there, meet them headway, and catch them in a pincer movement. That's what Vader would have done. He just would have thought twice about it. And it just feels weird to me that no one in the First Order thought to do that and just slowly chases along until they get to that fucking planet, Hey-ho. So, after this scene...
Dagobah!
We're not on Dagobah, we're actually back in the cave, because obviously we have quite an important part where it's not entirely stable. Look, Leia falls onto Han, and, he says, don't get excited, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, sweetheart, we haven't got time for anything else. And then we're on to Dagobah, and we meet a certain person for the first time. We meet Yoda for the first time. What do you think about this kind of opening scene when we meet Yoda for the first time?
I thought it was great. It was really interesting to see this weird ass character. It brought in some much needed levity to the movie. And his smacking R2 was really funny, and him basically ransacking the entire camp, or not the entire camp, basically a bunch of his stuff I thought was really funny. And they really did a good job. I'm kind of jumping forward a bit, but of making this sort of like a facade in a way.
Yeah.
Without necessarily making it feel like he was being completely phony in his personality. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah,
it's really
100%. I agree.
To me, it's one of the best sort of puppet characters ever made as well. I mean, I don't think at any point it looks, even to this day, it's still that. I don't see Yoda as a puppet. I see him as a character in that film, And it's even the way they shoot it. So they change the angles that they're shooting at sometimes so that they can show his legs and show him from behind. And they do that quite a lot, which must have been really difficult to film. You tear all this down, set it up. Puppeteer needs to go into this angle this time, reshoot the just to get different shots in. And by doing that, you never felt like it was a puppet and a stick or someone controlling it to me. And I still think that puppet Yoda looks better than the digital one in the prequels to me.
I agree, and I agree with Jammer. This introduction's a lot of fun, and before the prequel trilogy, because let's face it, Empire Strikes Back is probably the most contradicted by the prequel trilogy. So much from the PT just undoes almost everything Obi-Wan and Yoda ever say in Empire Strikes Back. But they give us stuff dealing with Obi-Wan saying that he was trained by Yoda talking about ages and all the physical training, which you never see any of the young Jedi doing in the prequel trilogy.
I always like to think he was flash training mode, he was accelerating the program a fuck lot.
I guess maybe.
Why are you going to make me defend the prequel trilogy, Kyle? I just think we weren't shown those things because we didn't see any of the training really at all.
Okay, and then they also undo everything with the word midichlorians. Everything that Yoda says about the Force during the X-Wing lifting scene, everything that the Force is undone by midichlorians. And that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of things, big and small, that I think the prequel trilogy just completely undoes with the way they explain things or don't show things. It's just like when Obi-Wan in Episode 4 says, I don't seem to remember ever owning a droid. Motherfucker, you owned 3, including having R2-D2 for a while. And in this one, I also feel Lucas was just I made 4, 5, and 6, but I'm not going to really... I want to pay off one thing and one thing only, and that's Anakin turning to the dark side, and everything else be damned. And so, yeah, I feel like Empire Strikes Back is probably the most contradicted by the prequel trilogy, and a lot of it deals with stuff dealing with Jedi and the Force itself.
See, I don't think midichlorians undoes it. It just makes it less interesting. But I don't think it undoes it. I think, there are all these things that the Force is,
was unneeded.
And maybe it was unneeded for sure. But I don't think it retcons it. I don't think it makes it any less what it is. It just dives deeper. That's like saying the idea of getting sick is ruined by the fact that we know it's caused by germs or something. I
disagree.
All right, but I'm saying I don't think we needed it, but I don't think I don't think it makes it any less accurate, anything that Yoda says.
I think from life creates it, binds us, through the rock, through the tree, through the ship, like everything that he was explaining made it very mystical and not bacterial, and completely takes away some of the power of the Force, because now it's something that doesn't necessarily permeate throughout the whole universe. It's something in certain people's blood cells. It undoes the mysticism and some of the
it's not necessarily
romanticism.
It's not necessarily
romanticism.
It definitely takes away the romanticism, but it doesn't say necessarily that the Force can't exist in a tree stump, or the Force can't exist, or the midichlorians can't exist in those things.
It does, because it says there's midichlorians in all life forms. All life forms have midichlorians in them. It's just some people can talk to them and some people can't. So yeah. I'm kind of leaning more towards Jammer here in this argument, I must admit, but at the same time I don't like midichlorians, but it wasn't a total deal breaker for me. That wasn't my issue with those films. It was far worse offenders.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that's like the only thing. I'm just saying to me it contradicts a lot of stuff that is discussed in The Empire Strikes Back.
I think they tried to kind of explain the Yoda training Obi-Wan thing by more training I have for you in your isolation.
Yeah, one throwaway fucking line. They
kind of did a bit more with that. If they'd have done a bit more with that would have sold it more to me. Does that make sense? That you really kind of felt that either Obi-Wan really was sitting learning remotely from Yoda from across the galaxy. Anyway, we need to talk about Han and Leia's kiss scene, which is the next thing that comes up, obviously. Leia is, and they have this little kind of between my hands are dirty too, what are you afraid of? Sorry, wrong voice, wrong person. That would have sounded much weirder going the other way.
That was your Leia voice for Han Solo.
Definitely. And they have this kiss and it's nicely broken up, I think, by 3PO, and just a nice little moment
Cockblock McGee,
because I like that. In that kind of film, I think you don't do too much smooching in a Star Wars film. It's not a smoochy film. No. Sorry. When I was a kid, I could appreciate that part as an adult, but when I was a kid, that was the part when you were watching with your mum and dad where you start to feel a bit uncomfortable if they start kissing for too long. You're like, I'm not sure I should be watching this. And I think I like movies that kind of don't do that, and Steven Spielberg's brilliant at that. He never really, very rarely ever does any kind of sex in his movies, and even in the Indiana Jones films it always cuts away to the next morning or something like that. There's always something that happens, so I like that little kind of technique on there. And really from this point on, Han and Leia's relationship changes in the movie, would it be fair to say?
Yeah,
they become less antagonistic. She becomes kind of more supportive of him. He becomes a little bit more sensitive and caring towards her, and that's the kind of breaking point in their dynamic, if you like. And then we go to Captain Needa, who tells Vader a few things, and we then get the scene where Vader gets summoned that he has to go and speak to the Emperor. Which is kind of a pivotal scene. Jammer, any thoughts on this scene where Vader confronts, or we see the Emperor for the first time?
I just remember how old and decrepit he looked back in the original edition, and it always is distracting when we see sort of the fatter, bigger version of Ian McDiarmid.
It wasn't just an actor. They got a monkey as well, and they superimposed a monkey, like an orangutan or something like that.
Didn't they get Irvin Kershner's wife to play him?
No, it was Clive Revel was the guy. And then they get this like monkey type thing, and they put it together so that he looked like a little bit alien. He had like weird monkey type eyes sticking out, and they did this kind of technique to put it together. Now Clive Revel, in terms of his voice and everything like that, there's not a problem at all, but I always hated Emperor Monkey Face, I have to say.
Yeah, it looked like he had clay on his eyes.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think they changed the way they put real Palpatine in. I think that's a positive.
I hate the episode 3 makeup. Like, they should have worked harder to make him look like he does in
Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi.
They should have changed the
but
lines.
The worst part of
it's probably
that's the worst part about it is the line change. And I know in our Slack conversation you said you think you've got a good reason for this line change, and I've been waiting you changed your mind.
I'm back
so what are the line changes? Hold on.
I downloaded that bit of the script for both, and I had a look at them, and I decided there was no need. No.
What wait a minute. What are the line changes?
There's more. I can tell you what the old one was. I've printed this out.
Okay, go ahead.
So, what is thy bidding, my master? There is a great disturbance in the Force. I felt it. We have a new enemy, Luke Skywalker. Whereas in the special edition, he says we have a new enemy, the young rebel who blew up the Death Star. I have no doubt that this kid is the offspring of Anakin Skywalker. And then Vader says, "How is that possible?" Whereas in the original script he just says, "Yes, my master." After that it kind of just follows the same route, although the inflection's a little bit different, but that's the kind of difference there.
And how it makes Vader seem stupid. It makes Vader seem stupid. It's like, how is that possible that I had a kid?
Well,
bitch, you knew that.
The thing I was thinking about was that, we know that Vader knows more than he's letting on. He's not telling the Emperor everything in this situation because he already knows. You've heard him say the name Skywalker. He knew that before the Emperor contacted him, so he was trying to find Skywalker in secret. So he's already suspected the truth, and he's lying to the Emperor but trying not to be caught out because now the Emperor's kind of caught on to it as well. And originally I thought maybe him going, "How is this possible?" kind of helped that. But actually, when you really analyse it, it didn't really, did it?
Yeah. I will concede that Ian McDermott's is a better choice to have in the updated versions without the line changes, but they really should have went with making him look, because it's always the neck. The fucking neck bugs the shit out of me in Revenge of the Sith.
It annoys me
this
that they
Blu-ray version
right.
of
It really does.
Oh god, I
think the neck was fine in Revenge of the Sith because there's decades past where that could change.
I guess maybe
But in this one, there's no excuse.
No, none. It's stupid. Fuck this.
Okay. And then we get to obviously the Yoda reveal scene. So inside the hut, Luke's going, "Oh, we're wasting our time here," and Yoda, "I cannot teach him. The boy has no patience." And Obi-Wan comes through. He will learn patience, and this is when
he will learn patience.
Yeah, that was quite good.
Thank you.
Much anger in him, like his father. And Luke realises, oh shit, this guy that I've been kind of really dismissing is actually Yoda. I've kind of put my foot in my mouth.
Fuck me.
Oh shit, I fucked this one up. And of course Yoda kind of reveals himself. He nods, and for 800 years have I trained Jedi. My own counsel will I keep on who is to be trained. I'm not really trying to do the voice, just kind of talking along with it. And Obi-Wan's trying to convince Yoda, and Luke's saying, "I'm ready, that'll be fine, this is absolutely I can do this." What do we think of this scene, the kind of Yoda reveal?
I think it's very, very important, and not just for the story, but for not just for the story, but the characters as well, especially Luke. It really shows off how brash and how impatient he really is. Yoda's speech is great, I was quoting it last night while we were watching it. And
this one, a long time
I love this scene.
Oh, that, it's brilliant. It's great.
All his life as he looked away to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing. I do. I love everything about Dagobah, just about, and it's great, man. It's fucking. This is great, fucking Star Wars. This is what makes people love the, this is one of those things that really makes people love this movie so much, is this stuff with Yoda and the stuff on Dagobah.
The dialogue's really good. Great. I think, everything Yoda says...
Because Lucas didn't write
it. Well, yeah, that's true, but it just works. Everything he says is like a nugget of advice. If you follow the advice of Yoda in real life, you'd probably get on pretty well in life. Believe in yourself, have faith in yourself. all this kind of stuff. Don't. We'll get to that as we kind of get to the next scene, which is a big scene. Yeah, classic.
Was this where you said like the "you will be" line?
Yes,
I'm not afraid. He's like you will be. You will be. And I'm like, good God.
Have you ever heard him saying that, like, when he was doing the actual puppet?
Yes. He was like, you will be.
You will be. It sounds like he's like almost like a schoolmaster just telling him off. So they did a lot of work with that in the voice studio. But for me, there's one thing I should say. I know it couldn't have happened, but for me, Frank Oz should have won Best Supporting Actor for Yoda in 1980 for Empire Strikes Back. That's how good he is.
In a world where Andy Serkis still can't get that for Caesar, there's no way he could have gotten that in the 80s. But yeah,
that's when it should have started. That's when people should have started talking about it then, because he's acting. If he controls the movements, he controls the voice. Just because he does the movements in the voice at a different time doesn't mean he's not acting. To me, and it's an absolutely phenomenal performance. So we then go back to the cave again, and we have the whole Minox scene, and they shoot the Minox, they fly out the cave, and the cave is collapsing, and we find out it's a big space
how
slug.
Stupid is Princess Leia? Where she's like, it's a cave is collapsing. How does that look like a cave? That does not look like a fucking cave. And not only like the cave is collapsing, it's like opening and closing slowly. It's like, no. That's not how caves collapse.
But still, pretty
space
cool.
caves, Jammer. Space caves.
Yeah, pretty cool idea to have this. From a biologist point of view, it's insane, but that doesn't matter because it's Star Wars, all right. So to have this animal just hiding in a cave and they're kind of living in its stomach at that time, it's a kind of cool idea, wasn't it? It was a cool sequence.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
And then, of course, we go back to Yoda and Luke beginning their training. And we then have the cave scene, where he faces different... right, this is interesting. There's a yuck here coming from Mr. Jammer. So,
well, mostly, like, I remember watching this as a kid. This was the scene I hated the most because it was so boring. It was so slow. And even, like, when I was little, I was like, why did his head appear? I don't get it. I mean, I get it now.
Right.
But I don't understand how this physically happened.
So, as a kid, I'm with you. I kind of got lost a little bit at this point, I must admit. But as an adult, I really like it, and it's one of the most important scenes because it tells us, how it happens is the Force. That's all you need to know. How does he pick up stuff with his mind? The Force. How can he sense the future? The Force. How does this happen? The Force. This is a guy that can project himself halfway across the galaxy, so I think Yoda creating some sort of vision in his head isn't too much to ask. But I love the way that, like, even as a kid though, I knew it wasn't real because it was in slow motion. That way where they kind of just go into slow motion and it makes you think something's not right here. So even when he chops Darth Vader's head off as a kid, I knew that wasn't really Darth Vader before even the head pops off and we see Luke's face. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
I was confused as a kid. You know what this scene reminds me of in retrospect? It reminds me of the scene in the fucking tower in Game of Thrones from the books. Where she's like going through different levels and seeing weird shit, and then I never understood what was going on.
Right.
Does that, you know what I'm talking about?
I'm trying to think.
I think it's in A Storm of
Swords.
Oh,
yeah. I know what you're talking about. The Warlock thing. She goes through and she keeps seeing all these visions and shit. And like she sees Drogo and she sees the throne and all of that, and she decides to ignore all them and still go for her dragons. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me of that in retrospect because this is the first time I've seen it since I'd read the books. Or actually, is that true? No, it's a lie. No, it is true because I didn't finish it last time. Yeah, it's the first time I'd seen that scene since then, and it just reminded me of that from reading the books and then seeing the show.
I'm alright with a dream sequence, Wayne's World. We can have a few dream sequences kicking about.
I think I'm weird. I have a pet peeve of dream sequences. I don't like dream sequences. Especially, I hated them in Age of Ultron. I hated them here. I just hate them because
in The Last Jedi, though.
Which ones? Oh, the flashbacks? Yeah. Those aren't dream sequences, they're flashbacks.
Oh, right. Well, okay.
Well, she does have that weird Force sequence.
You're right.
Mirrors and stuff.
That was visually cool, but I didn't care for it either because it was weird and nebulous and odd.
All right.
So yeah, but like, I don't like dream sequences because they're lazy storytelling crutches a lot of times, where it's just like,
I like
oh,
your consistency.
we don't know how to portray something, so we're just gonna have them dream something, and then it's like, oh, they foreshadowed this. It's like, no shit, because they basically were able to do whatever they wanted in a dream sequence out of context.
I get
That's
what
how I
you're
felt
saying.
when I saw like
But
Age of Ultron. That's how I felt.
yeah,
In
I can get
a
it in
bunch of
Age of
Marvel movies
Ultron
and stuff.
definitely, but I think in this context it isn't really a dream sequence, is it? He's there, you know, actually doing these things.
Yeah.
It's more of he's having
It's like a
vision,
hallucination.
Yeah, which I think's, you know, a little bit different.
Am I inconsistent, Kyle? Was that what you're saying?
No, I said I appreciate your consistency.
Oh, okay.
That's a little bit better than the other way. And obviously Luke kind of realises, or he has some kind of understanding when he looks at his own face, and Yoda just kind of drops his head and understands it's failed. And then we cut back to the bounty hunters, and for such a small little sequence, this became a really famous scene, of kind of having all these bounty hunters lined up. Kyle, can you name all the bounty hunters?
I could until you just said something. IG-88, Bosk,
Yeah.
Dengar, of course Boba Fett, Zuckus,
Next one
Zuckus,
starts with a
something
number.
like that.
Next one starts with a number.
And I said IG-88.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, you
Four
Loam,
Lom.
something
Four
Loam or
Lom.
Loam something. Yep, Four Loam. There you go.
That's it.
So
So, you know, those are our bounty hunters.
Now what?
And in the EU,
Fucking testing
which
my Star
obviously
Wars,
we
G.
know, if you've been listening to any of these before, you know absolutely how much Kale loves the EU, which is now branded the Legends. And these bounty hunters became a big part of that, right? You know, because
Yes,
they
they
all
did.
had stories expanded. And one of my favourite, because I liked some of the EU, and one of my favourite books was Tales of the Bounty Hunters, which actually it actually showed you from that point what happened to each of those characters until the kind of Boba Fett gets to Bespin, because obviously the length of time after this, it's quite a long time canonically until the Millennium Falcon actually arrives at Bespin, because it's doing it at sublight speeds, possibly weeks, possibly months that have gone by. So they were able to kind of construct all this kind of story about what everybody else got up to during that time when they were looking for the Millennium Falcon. And obviously Vader sends him out. We then see that Han and everything like that, they've missed that bit where they kind of flew in and just disappeared off the radar, and we find out that they're actually on the side of the ship hiding. That's pretty ingenious, right? You know, I mean,
It's pretty cool, yeah.
I thought that was great. You know, they kind of basically fly in under the radar, literally, and just kind of land there. And then they have the little kind of talk about where they're going to go next. The Lando system. No, Lando's not a system, he's a man. Lando Calrissian. And then when they dump their garbage, they float away with the rest of the garbage, as Leia says. And she gives them a little kiss and she says, "You have your moments." And gives them a little kiss. Not many, but you do have them. You know, and that again,
I will
that
say,
warmth that's building between them. She's genuinely impressed by him at this point.
I wrote this down. There's no way in a time of war that a military is going to dump that much scrap and just leave it floating around, especially when the rebels
really,
can come and
Kyle?
get it and reuse it.
When was the last time you were in space?
Yeah. You can't talk about it.
I can talk about what I can talk about what I see real militaries doing.
But that's
and
on a
they throw some trash,
you have
but
a
not
very
equipment.
Tell us
like
about your
that.
experience in the Space Force, Kyle.
Have you been on
I'm
trouble?
kidding.
He could tell you, but then he'd have to shoot you. That's the only
Yeah. But no, it was just a funny moment. One of those, like, you know, where you realize something completely wouldn't, you know, doesn't mesh with like real life, and it was just something I wrote down being kind of funny.
I hate you for pointing that out. It's one of my favourite scenes. It's you know, at the end of the day, the Empire are so in control. They have so much resources. You know, they can build Death Stars and gigantic Star Destroyers. They ain't giving a fuck about some rubbish that they jump out in the middle of nowhere. It's close to the Hoth system, are they?
Till that rubbish is used to destroy you.
Yeah, but you know, when
like I said, it's not like a real point. I just thought it was funny.
You know? It would just be like shit and trash and stuff like that. You know, oh, we got their trash, now we can destroy them.
That's what Kyle will do.
Yeah, well, but Kyle's a soldier, see, he knows how to take trash.
I'm fucking
and
MacGyver,
kill
damn it.
people with it. We just don't. We don't have that experience,
We don't.
So they kind of fly away. They're looking for where they're heading off, and Boba Fett obviously sneakily comes up and starts following along behind the Millennium Falcon. And we then cut to, we're back to Dagobah again, aren't we? Yeah, and
yes,
this is I'll just say it right now, my favourite scene in the whole movie. I know sometimes this is one of the things we talk about at the end, but I'm just going to come right out with it now. This is absolutely my favourite scene in the movie. When Yoda's teaching Luke to move the bricks and concentrate, and then they kind of fall over because the ship's sinking. And as you kind of alluded to earlier on, Kyle, it's the kind of life lessons, it's the dialogue that Yoda's using to him,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we'll never get it out now. So certain are you? Hear you nothing that I say? And he just goes through this whole, your limitations are your mind, basically.
Yep.
And he talks to, I mean, I've got the kind of thing here, actually. What is it he said? Yeah, he tells Luke to try and kind of, he should lift it, and Luke's like, I'll give it a try. No, try not, do or do not, there is no try. He tries to lift it and it's too big, and he says, sorry, it's too big. Size matters not, look at me, judge me by my size, do you? And well, you should not, for my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it goes, etc., etc., etc. And and Luke just looks at him forlorn and just says, "You want the impossible," and walks away. And then we see Yoda just very calmly. He's a bit resigned. He lifts out his hand, and the Yoda theme, which is one of my favourite themes in this movie because it's used in so many different places at different tempos to provide different effect. And I just love the way it builds in this sequence. As Luke slowly realises what Yoda's doing, and we see that he's lifted the X-Wing out and he brings it over, and it kind of builds to the da-da as it kind of stops, and Luke just looks at it and looks all around, and he's like, I don't believe it. That is what you fail. And boof, just cut from there. So that's my favourite scene. What do you guys think?
It's a great scene, and it's incredibly powerful. This movie gives us more of the Force than just about every movie out there. Yeah. And not just through like the explanations, but actual use. Vader chokes what's his name in the boardroom, the meeting room in A New Hope, and Luke uses the Force to sense when and where to shoot the proton torpedoes for the Death Star. But we really get a lot of Force, and not just telekinesis. There's visions, there's feelings, there's a lot, and Yoda's speech about what the Force is so powerful, and this is probably one of the scenes that makes Star Wars a damn near religious movement. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like a religious experience.
Because everybody who's a Star Wars fan loves this bit, because everybody thinks, there is literally religions out there where people call themselves Jedi, and it's really what Yoda says in this bit that is the tenets of their kind of faith, if you like. Obviously, people don't know it's not real, but they follow the values that are presented within it, and it's really kind of this whole sequence, isn't it?
Yeah. I think this, however, illustrates my biggest problems with the whole movie. I'm kidding, it doesn't. This is a really good scene. But
do you know, because I said it was my favourite, I mean, we should point out, Jammer and I never agree on anything ever. It's like just one of those universal rules. So I was expecting you to say this is your least favourite scene. It just shows you.
No, it's great. It's a great scene. Like, I remember how cool it was as a kid. Where was it the scene where he says size doesn't matter? It was like, judge me by my size, do you not, or whatever. That whole, I think this was the first idea where that whole concept of size doesn't matter was sort of introduced to me as a kid, and I was like, oh, he could lift a big thing. I thought that was really cool. And then, of course, I also have flashbacks to playing Super Empire Strikes Back on the Super NES, and every single time you click, you go, do or do not. There is no try. like constantly.
Yeah, but I mean that line in itself. I mean, how many times have I used that in everyday life? You know, somebody say I'm going to try and do that, and I just I can't help it. I just say, you know, do or do not. There is no try. You know, it's just
I used to work at Disney TV Animation, and one of the groups had a donut area where if you brought donuts in, you'd put it at this spot underneath the Yoda poster, and underneath it says "Do or donut. There is no cutting."
No.
It like made no sense, but it was just funny. Like it stuck with me since then because it made no sense, but it was also funny because obviously it was just one of those things that was a stretch, but I enjoyed it, and I always think back to that now as well.
I mean, we talked about the score a lot in this, and for me, the score does drive home a lot of things I love about this film. I'm a score person in movies, and this is my favourite score in any movie of all time because it's my favourite movie of all time, and I just love the way Williams' music, he uses 3 or 4 themes only in this film, but he uses them at different tempos and different, you know, moments to elicit the response so that it almost feels like a silent movie. If you cut off the sound effects, you know, and the dialogue, you can get the idea of what's supposed to be happening because of the music that's going along with it at that time. Does that make sense to anyone else, or am I just
absolutely? And I think no, you're not insane at all. I think that's what illustrates why music was so strong in this era. And music is getting better in today's blockbusters, but for the past 15 years, it was garbage. Like there was no themes to music. Like look at the MCU; there were no themes to the MCU, really. For a large chunk of it up until where they really started people like the Avengers theme, maybe we should do something with it. You know, it wasn't until relatively recently that they started doing that. And yeah, them basically taking the same themes and repurposing them is what made these moments so iconic to us as kids and growing up. It's just that's it. Like I don't understand how Hollywood lost that.
You know, when they've been making other Star Wars films, they've shied away from the Star Wars themes too much. They should have used them. They shouldn't be like just copy what Williams did. But there's at certain points in Rogue One where you want the heroic Star Wars theme to kick in. You know, the because it's not Star Wars music. It's not the Skywalker. It's Star Wars. It's the theme tune for the entire thing. Whenever you see it, I think it should be absolutely acceptable to use that theme in any Star Wars film and not have to worry about it, kind of thing. You know, but I just don't.
Yeah, I did like The Force Awakens. I did like The Force Awakens, but I did not like The Last Jedi that much. The score for that, it's like they're trying to give too many things their own theme, to the point where it just dilutes it to the point where it's not really recognizable anymore as much as it used to be.
It just feels like incidental music rather than these memorable scores. When we talk about this film and we talk about the score, that's one of the things in The Last Jedi. You're not going to go, oh, I love the way it builds to a crescendo at this moment, or it just trickles down into this. You're just not going to do that in that film, because although it's Williams and it's still a decent score, nobody's saying it's shit, but it's not quite as iconic, is it?
Yeah, correct. And I also think that this does illustrate, not this movie, but like music in the film industry does kind of illustrate the problems I have with a lot of American composition, period, to where it doesn't feel like they're creating melodic music as much as they are creating beat for beat music. So like I always say this as a comparison, like if a character is sneaking, having the music go like do-dun, do-dun, dun, dun, and I'm just like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've had a lot more of that over the past 20 years than we did before, and it's just frustrating.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
So one of the things I did is I get the scenes mixed up. So that scene actually happens before Han flies away with the rest of the garbage. So after that actually goes back to the vision. After that, when Luke's doing some more training and he has this obviously vision of the future, and he sees Han and Leia in a city in the clouds, and obviously we haven't got there yet as we Han and Leia, so we know he's sensing the future, and he's concerned by them, and he asks Yoda, and Yoda's not sure. Always in motion is the future, and he asks him, will they die? And he says, don't know, can't tell you that, and Luke wants to go to them, but Yoda kind of convinces him that he shouldn't, and they should stay and complete his training. And then the next shot we cut to is obviously Han and Leia arriving on Bespin, City in the Clouds. At that point, I mean, again, it's just worth pointing out that we're imagining that weeks, potentially months, have passed where Luke's been training at this point, and he's still struggling to pick up rocks. He certainly can't pick up an X-Wing fighter or anything like that. And this is one of the issues that some people have had with the sequel trilogy with Rey, and how quick she's able to like just pick up those rocks at the end of The Last Jedi, which seems like a almost Yoda skill, you know, at that point, compared to how little training and time she's had since she learned the Force. Would you say that, looking back at it now, Jammer, is that a fair criticism when you compare it to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, I agree. As far as Rey goes, yeah, her lifting the rocks, she lifts them way too fast. Like, I get that completely. Like, it's just, it's unearned skill, like, no doubt about that. That being said, I do think, what was I going to say here? Yeah, I don't think Luke Skywalker has ever been accused of being like overpowered or anything like that. And comparatively, yeah, Rey definitely does have a lot more power. But I do think that she would be less criticized if she was a male character.
I mean, maybe
we'll never know.
We'll never know for sure.
But
we'll never know.
I think the criticism, I think it's
but the
one
criticism
of the things
is valid
people go
on some
to
level.
is you're just saying that because it's a woman. But I think the evidence in Empire Strikes Back is, well, that's not the case. If Luke just suddenly was able to pick up that X-Wing fighter...
To be clear, I'm not saying that they did that in Star Wars. I'm saying that in general, when it comes to movies, she would have been less criticized if she was a guy. That being said, I do still think it is a valid criticism. I'm just saying it would be less... I think fans would be less rabid about it if it was a dude. A lot of fans. We'll never know.
We'll never know.
I might be wrong.
That's true.
Not for Star Wars,
at
at
least.
least.
Not for Star Wars. Well,
Yeah,
unless they make another
Wars,
story where they do exactly the same thing with a male character. But, you know, that seems highly unlikely. So we then get to Bespin, as I said, and we meet Lando Calrissian for the first time. That old smoothie himself. Oh. Hello.
So I love and hate this.
All right.
I love and hate this because first of all, I love him. He's great. However, I hated watching this and just having it be reinforced into my head how much Donald Glover was just a pale imitation, and it just wasn't. It didn't feel anywhere near as natural and charismatic as this guy is perfectly.
No, I think it was a tough ask for Glover, actually, because I don't think they really gave him much chance to develop as a character. They kind of said, you're Lando Calrissian, so start acting like Lando Calrissian. You don't feel like his arc created till he became this person. It was almost as if he was supposed to be like old Lando right for the start. Does that make sense? That you didn't feel like he kind of earned that, you know?
It also felt like he was putting on a voice or putting on. It felt fake. His performance felt fake, whereas Billy D. Williams feels natural.
Because that's just Billy D. That's Billy D. He is a smooth motherfucker, you know.
Yeah.
He is indeed.
And of course, like, Lando talks them through and explains what's going on in the city and everything like that. 3PO, you know, wanders away. Oh, a familiar face. Ichuta! How rude! And then he, you know, oh, sorry, please don't get up. Gets blown up, the door gets shut. Chewie's like, where the hell's 3PO? And we're in Bespin and there's some sort of mystery going on. And the next thing that happens is we cut back to Luke again.
Wait, I just realized who did that? Who blew him apart? I realized we never really.
They tell you.
Yeah,
it was when they rebuild him later on. He says, "Oh, stormtroopers here! I must warn the others." Yep. Oh no, I've been shot.
Oh.
So yeah, he wandered in and stormtroopers.
God, I'm so slow. I've watched this movie so many times. I never really put it together that it was a stormtrooper.
Well, see, if you maybe watched it another couple of hundred times to get an hour level,
maybe,
yeah, maybe you would have picked that up. I don't know.
Like possible. I remember being annoyed that it's being blown apart. It was on par with the Millennium Falcon not, being able to go to
when you were a kid, you mean
hyperspace.
It just annoyed you that like you'd been killed, kind of thing. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I was just like, why? It's like it's another thing to worry about. We have enough to worry about. I don't want to have to worry about a C-3PO falling apart.
And of course, all it does is kind of lets you into there's something maybe not quite right that's going on there. And we cut back to Luke, and he's going to leave. The X-Wing's all set up, he's ready to go. And then Ben appears, and both Ben and Yoda try to convince Luke to stay. He's not having any of it. And I did say I was going to bring up a few more of these examples. At the very end of this sequence, Yoda Ben says, that boy is our last hope, and Yoda says, no, there is another. After that shot, who's the first character we see on screen after he says that? Guess.
Leia.
Yeah.
I don't think it was intentional. I'm pretty sure George Lucas was full of shit.
3 examples I've given that you're all like, oh yeah, okay.
Well, I haven't bought any of them though.
So
I have said that they are valid. I'm just saying I don't know necessarily that's.
But as a jammer, as a writer, that's the kind of thing you do, isn't it? If you're going to talk, if you look at things like Game of Thrones, they do lots of little things like that where you talk about some, and then the next character that you see is that person, and it kind of doesn't make you think about it until later on when you go, that was a bit of signpost.
But I think they're a much better job of doing things like when you look back at it, it's like, oh, of course that's what it means. Whereas this one, it's like you kind of have to tilt your head, do a handstand, and squint in order to sort of connect those dots.
I don't think you do it, honestly. I don't think you do it. I just think that they tried to not make it obvious. They wanted to make it very subtle.
I think you got to do at least the handstand. Maybe not the squinting of the eyes and stuff like that, but the handstand maybe.
Yeah, because I mean that's the thing. Is like, it makes sense. Yes, it makes sense. Like, here's the thing. I won't deny that what you say could be read that way, but I also think that George Lucas is full of shit and was making all of this stuff up as he went.
Right. So you don't think that Darth Vader was supposed to be Luke's father in the first movie?
No. God, no.
Okay. So
I think so. I think that might be one of the only things. But the Leia thing, I don't.
Things that point towards that, even in that first film. I think you're giving him a discredit. Remember when he started making it, and even in his first drafts, it was Anakin Starkiller. So Anakin was the Luke character, and he switched all that round about. I think it was always there, the whole kind of Darth Vader being his father thing. And I think at least from Empire onwards, the Leia being his sister was there as well. Even if it's not from Lucas, it was from Kasdan.
George Lucas has a history of retconning his own memory. Have you read the book How Star Wars Conquered the Universe?
No.
That book it constantly brings up all of the different retcons where he says in this interview that, oh yeah, I intended this, and the other one who's like, no, that came out naturally over this, and blah blah blah. Basically, he's constantly changing his story, so we'll never know for sure. But it's because of those stories that I've heard of his contradictions that I'm just pretty sure he was making it up as he went.
Would you say that there's enough evidence there to suggest that it's not cut and dry, though? Surely, that he just definitely.
I think there's enough. I think there's enough to where it's like if you look at the third one and be like, okay, if I look back, I could see that there's stuff there that doesn't it doesn't go against anything that was laid out. But I don't think it was inevitably leading to the reveal.
I think he was definitely. I mean. Obviously, he had some ideas, but I just don't know if Leia being Luke's sister, being the other, was already set in stone.
There is another example later on that I'm going to get to as well, so maybe that one will make you think differently about it. I don't know.
It is disappointing because he says, well, there is another. And it almost hints that we're going to see sort of an awakening of sorts for that other person, but it's like never fulfilled. It's more like, oh yeah, the other one is the sister, but she's not really going to do anything important. But it was just a line. Is that not the
fault of the sequel trilogy and J.J. Abrams more than it is the original trilogy? Because
I was talking about Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no time in that movie. That movie takes place across a couple of weeks at most, right? Return of the Jedi. Yeah. There's not a lot of time passes there at all. So
no, but there's a lot of time in between. There's like several months that pass in between Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, but Luke's away doing different things. I mean, if you consider Shadows of the Empire canon, which I do because it actually fits in perfectly as what would have happened.
Yeah, I guess that is the one book I feel like kind of just does fit canonically. It is
and
weird.
It's really good.
But it's not.
But yeah, it's probably not canon anymore, is it? Because it's
no, it definitely isn't.
But to me, I just never felt like Leia and Luke spent that much time together after that, and Luke doesn't know it. At this point, and Leia doesn't know it. And when Luke doesn't know that he's a Jedi, it's not as if he's suddenly, like Rey, just starts things happen to him. He has to learn a little bit from Obi-Wan first before he starts to explore it. Leia's got no concept to who she's supposed to be.
But when you hint that there's another, I think you kind of hint that there is something coming. You know, I hate to
Yeah,
say
there
this.
should have been something in Return of the Jedi. Not, it didn't even have to be big. And I mean, Lucas apparently had some ideas for 1, 2, and 3, and 7, 8, 9. Even going back a long time ago, maybe he was going to have it pay off in his version of 7. Who knows?
But the thing is I almost feel like this feels like J.J. Abrams building up something that wasn't paid off in the next movie, you know? Kind of like what people complained about for The Last Jedi.
With Leia specifically?
Where it's like, yeah, because, or with something there being another. Like, it felt like saying, like, oh, Irvin Kershner's like, I have this idea for this. And then when they go to the next one, they're just like, we're not going to go that route. It's just the sister.
Yeah.
I don't agree, but then I'll talk about the point later on where I think it comes into play again. Then obviously our heroes get captured by Vader. Lando leads them through, and Vader's sitting there waiting for them along with Boba Fett. We would be honoured if
without
you would join
skipping
us.
A beat.
Yeah.
Without skipping a beat, Han fucking just pulls the gun and shoots him. Doesn't ask any questions, doesn't waste any time. He just fucking goes for his gun.
And it's how it's
scene.
completely fruitless as well, because Vader just very easily blocks it. Whew, thanks, I love your
Patty cakes
gun.
it.
Yeah. That's mine now, thanks, have a seat. Let's start talking reasonably. It's just a really good scene. And we find out Lando has betrayed them. Oh, evil Lando. But I don't ever remember thinking of Lando as a bad guy. Do you know that? Maybe that's because I was so young when I started watching them. I knew that he kind of came good in the end, but you never kind of felt as if he was some sort of shady character. And of course, as we get through the rest of it, we realise that he was actually misguided, but trying to help Han, by agreeing to give up this guy he had never met before, and not realising the kind of complications that would cause.
And he was also trying to take care of his own people there on Cloud City.
Yeah, absolutely, because obviously he talks about how the threat of the Empire, so, Vader makes him all these promises, and clearly they're all shit. He's never going to do any of that. He's going to do exactly what he wants. He just wants to kind of try and get him on side. And then we see that Vader obviously tortures Han. And as we've already kind of said, I think you agreed, Kel, that to me was like showing us that's what brought Luke there. It was that torture scene. Then the way they deliberately put Leia in to the cell with Han after he's just come back as well, so that she experiences that anguish as well. That's what Luke was feeling like several weeks ago or whatever, before he started kind of going to Bespin. And Han
it was
even
weird,
says
though.
They never even asked me any questions,
Right, so I have two questions that came up. One, what exactly were they doing to him? Like, was it just sparking on him, or what was it doing?
Well, it looks like a torture chair. I think the rest's supposed to be an imagination. This was a U movie, remember, when it came out? Well, literally not even PG, it was U. So,
right. And then, what was she doing? What were they doing with her? Because they weren't torturing her.
No. So, I don't know. They never tortured her anyway. They seemed to put her in so that she experienced the anguish of what had happened to Han, and obviously that's what Luke sensed. Although I would argue, obviously, it's more Leia that they sensed, because when he's getting the vision, he goes, Han, Leia! Like that, as if that's more important. Like, suddenly that spikes into his head. I would say that's another telltale sign, but it's only a small one. And obviously we find out that they're going to set this trap for Luke, and Lando comes in and tells him. Han punches him, and then we get the carbon freeze chamber where it's like Vader setting it up, and Lando says, oh, this might kill him. And Vader's like, oh, I don't want the Emperor's prize damaged. We will test it on Captain Solo. Well done, Lando. Fucked that one up as well. And obviously we see Luke coming into the clouds, but that's about it. And then we cut to the actual carbon freezing scene where Han's in chains, Leia, Chewie and all that are there. And of course we get the classic, I love you, I know line before they put him in. Thoughts on that scene, the carbon freeze chamber scene, Jama?
Iconic, like a lot of stuff in this movie is. I like his last second look up and squint as it goes up. It's just really cool. And it always did bother me that the carbon freeze didn't have his like face upward, but whatever. But yeah, I love the interaction. I remember laughing as a kid for the first time when I heard the "I know" line because it just felt so weird.
But it feels right so as well.
Oh yeah, it feels
Totally
right. I mean,
right
I don't think I appreciated how right for the character that was until I got older. But definitely it's perfect for the character.
Rumor is with this one as well that Ford was sick of shooting this scene so many times because Fisher kept fucking it up. That when she said "I love you," he just said "I know," and Kershner went, "That's it. That's the take. That was brilliant." You know, of course, if you download the script or anything like that, it's got that in it. But you know, that's a reproduced script. We don't know what was in the actual original script they were shooting on, but that's what I've heard the rumour is anyway, that was a bit of ad-libbing from Ford, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I know.
I believe that one.
I know even Irvin Kershner said that it was like a scene that it was a spur-of-the-moment thing that Harrison Ford came up with on set. Because
it's because Han Solo would never fucking say "I love you." Well, that's just not him.
He does,
especially
in
front of the
Jedi,
people.
But you know, he does love her.
I think he would.
Yeah, but that was very close and personal, and he wasn't about to be in carbon freeze. He's not trying to exude
like
confidence.
Too macho in that situation to say it back.
Yeah.
Either way, it's one of the most iconic sort of lines in cinema, isn't it? So we'll forgive whatever kind of excuse it is because it was just fucking brilliant. I'd say this is possibly my second favourite scene in the movie. I just love the way it's shot. It's all dark and smoky, and the way that Han and Leia's theme just builds up and then drops suddenly as he goes into the freeze chamber, and then it gets all like really clinical and sinister, the music after that, and then they drop him down and it's like that slam, and then it, you know, the Han and Leia theme kicks back in, but it's now more mournful, you know, and Lando's checking, you know, to see if he's still alive and everything like that. And what a fucking cool idea carbonite is, to freeze somebody in carbonite to transport them as a prisoner. That's why we like sci-fi, right? When they come up with cool shit like that we go, no one's ever thought about that before, but that's fucking cool, right?
I thought it was cool when they were wheeling it out and it was floating.
Yeah. And it looked like
it's got repulsor lift sled built into it.
I mean, I know it wasn't perfect. Maybe it'd be better on this day, but certainly as a kid back then in the 80s, you know, that looked like Harrison Ford in that. You know, you totally bought that completely, I think.
I actually have the carbon freeze Lego set.
Yeah.
My son picked it out for Christmas a year or two ago, so I've got that in a little Han Solo frozen.
My son got one that fits in the back of a Slave One toy hood. It's got a special compartment that it just kind of slides into, and it fits perfectly inside that. It's got little jail cells in it and stuff like that. Yeah, pretty cool. Better than anything I had as a kid, that's for sure. So, you know, Han's in carbonite, and, you know, they take everybody away. Vader changes the plan again, you know, and Lando by this time ain't too happy.
Pray I don't alter it any further.
And just classic James Earl Jones voice. And then, obviously, we get, you know, they're walking out. Boba Fett's going with Han, his ship. The princess and all that are being led out to Vader's shuttle, and Luke kind of comes in and he sees them at different points. We have that scene where he's kind of like, he's chasing one, then he's chasing the other one. He kind of doesn't know where he's going, and then obviously he just gets led into this corridor. He starts kind of following his own instincts, and before you know it, he goes up a lift and he's in the carbon freezing chamber himself. And obviously, as an audience, we know what that means, and it's even darker than it was before. It's all like red and stuff like that, and smoky as hell. And then you just hear Vader's breathing in the background. The Force is with you, young Skywalker, but you are not a Jedi yet. And I always love that line because it's like telling the audience right there, this ain't going to be Luke saving the day by kicking Vader's arse here. He's not a Jedi yet. Do you know what I mean? And even the way like Luke goes up and he looks at his blaster and then he puts it away and he brings out the lightsaber and it's as if he lights it really quick, and Vader just casual as hell brings up his lightsaber, and it almost feels like when he ignites it, his blade even ignites slower. It just goes like dead casually. I thought that was a nice touch as well because he's so unconcerned. And obviously we have the first little segment of the battle there between Luke and Vader until the point he tries to push him into the carbon freeze chamber, and then he kind of jumps up. And at the same time, we're intercutting with what's happening between Han, Leia, and Lando obviously rescue them.
Really quick, is that the first time we see a Super Jedi jump?
I think it is, yeah.
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 Yeah, I don't remember any other kind of jumping or anything like that prior to that, no. Mm-mm. And I know they then use that a little bit in the prequels, but yeah, I think
they use that a lot in the prequels. Yeah.
But they use everything a bit too much, don't they, in the prequels? That's the problem with them. It's all too much, you know, instead of...
There's a lot of issues.
Yeah, there's more issues.
Which you could go back and listen to Last Call podcast. Episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Just find out how bad they were, because we ain't ever watching them again. That's for damn sure.
Never fucking watching that shit again.
I'll watch this one any day of the week. So
really quick, I do want to say in regards to the fight scene, I can't say how I felt about it when I first saw it because I don't remember the first time I saw it anymore.
Yeah.
But I can say that rewatching it as a kid and even more recently, I got so bored during these fight scenes, during these
really?
Yeah, bored as fuck. Because like nothing happens. There's like not much going on. It's slow. It's sort of just
the point.
But
it's more emotion.
But it's not though. Like I didn't feel like it was. I didn't feel any emotion. I just felt like it was like a cat and mouse thing. However, recently, the emotional fight for me, that's Return of the Jedi. But in this one, it's just dark and kind of hard to follow, and I want things to get going to the point. But when I watched it most recently, I think I appreciated that it wasn't. It felt more like a horror movie than it did a normal action scene, where he was just kind of ducking in behind in the shadows and stuff, and then kind of hopping outward, and just the approach of it I thought was cool. It kind of reminded me of like Alien or something, to where it felt really sinister. And I think I appreciate it on a different level that I actually hadn't up until watching it a few days ago again.
Here's the way I think you've got to view this particular fight. You've look at it from Darth Vader's point of view, right? Suddenly standing in front of you is your son of 20 whatever years that you never thought existed, and he's there in the flesh standing in front of you. Imagine the conflict that then begins, which we know what that ends up with, but this is the point it really kicks in for Vader. That conflict begins in him, and he's genuinely impressed when Luke escapes, and he knows that he can destroy Luke anytime he wants, and he only ends the fight at the point when he gets fed up. Everything up to that point is just him pushing him a little bit further, just to see what he can cope with and what he can't cope with, and then when he gets fed up because he gets hit in the arm, he ends the fight. Boom.
But because we aren't privy to those emotions, it doesn't necessarily come across that way. And as a kid, it felt a little boring. Once again, it's probably the least watched fight for me because as a kid, I just fast forwarded that and got to like the revealed part. So me seeing it in like the light, I appreciate it more, but I still think it's a little bit slow.
But even the way Vader uses but even the way Vader just like steps back, puts his lightsaber down and just uses the Force to throw stuff at him, and it totally destroys Luke. That's cool because it shows you how much more powerful Vader is, that he is literally just toying with Luke, you know. But
there was a moment where it's like, there was a moment where he like hopped out and was like, and then like just totally missed Luke.
Yeah, because he's not trying to kill him. It's the last thing he wants, you know. He only cuts his hand off to end the fight.
Here's what I think is going on, and you know this because when Vader says, you know, the Emperor's seen that you can destroy him, and we can rule the Emperor, the galaxy as father and son. Vader has already gotten this idea in his mind. If I can turn Luke and become his master, make him my apprentice, we can take over.
Yeah,
we can destroy.
Which is how the Sith work. And that's perfect.
Right, the entire beginning of the fight is Vader testing Luke and Luke's skills. Yeah. So I absolutely love this scene, and I love that aspect of it. I love Vader testing Luke all the way up through to where he chops off his hand, basically because he sees that he's not going to get anywhere this way, and of course because he gets pissed off because he gets his arm cut, and then tries to go the emotional route, you know, of, well, I'm your fucking father, why don't you do what I say, damn it. And I
go to your room.
I go clean your room. I do agree with Jammer. I cannot wait until next month to talk about Return of the Jedi, because I do think, while physically the best fight of all is Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul. As far as like
I know what you mean.
Physically fighting, the most emotional fight of them all through the whole saga is Return of the Jedi, and I can't wait to talk about it.
It's the better fight between the two, because you've then got two more equals, and there's a different dynamic, because Vader wants Luke to beat him in that fight. He's trying to go them into killing him because he thinks that's how he'll save him. It's this complete switch round for what's happening in Empire. But, obviously, it keeps like switching back, obviously, between Han and Leia and everything like that. So there's music the whole time. But then, as Han escapes and they're kind of going to try and make Han goes away with Boba Fett, they fail to rescue him, and then they go away to find their own escape, they meet R2, everything like that. Then when it cuts back after Luke's falling out the window, which, by the way, that window, that was the first time we had like that classic Star Wars window where it was this big window with all the kind of like web design. I know the later was used for the Death Star in Return of the Jedi, but anyway. And when it cuts back to Luke on the kind of, the platform where they finish off the fight, the music cuts completely. So all you hear is like the wind as Luke walks through, and then Vader ignites his lightsaber, like Jammer's saying. It's as if he like jumps at him going like, ha! You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no music in that at all. And actually, if you notice that's the only part of the film where they cut the track completely. And it doesn't start again until Vader cuts the hand off Luke, and obviously delivers the famous twist. So I guess we have to talk about that and what it meant and the importance of it and everything like that. So Jammer, Darth Vader being Luke's daddy, what do you think of that? Or what did you think of it at the time? What do you think of its legacy?
At the time it's super cool. Like, it was like, what? I can't believe it. Like, it's funny, a lot of people thought he was lying. Like, as a kid, I hardly understood the concept of lying. So I was like, no, he's telling the truth because he said it. Why else would he say it if he wasn't telling the truth? So yeah, I thought it was really cool, really unexpected. A little bit, in retrospect, I wish they could have laid the groundwork on that a bit more to the point where, as I mentioned before, it feels like, oh, of course, that's his father.
See, I think it does, though. I think it does. I completely disagree with you. That's what I love about that twist, because I love a twist that when you get the reveal, that you go immediately, of course, that makes so much sense, as opposed to one where you go a little bit later, oh yeah, now that I think about it. And to me, that never felt
That's
like
what I feel like this was.
I always felt like, as soon as he said it, I knew he's right, that this makes sense, this is correct, So it's funny we look at it different like that. Malone, tiebreaker.
It is interesting.
I love this scene. I believed it from the get-go. I think it still works, and I think, like I said, I do believe that Vader was meant to be Luke's father from the beginning, from episode 4. And so yeah, I'm more on with Cam on this one than Jammer. I think me and Jammer have talked about this in the past too on other podcasts when Star Wars comes up, maybe even just Slack. It's such a memorable scene just on its own, and it's not just because of what is said and what's revealed, but like you were saying, Cam, the way the music is not there, the use of the environment's sounds, just all of it leads to one of the most perfect scenes in cinema and one of the most misquoted scenes in cinema.
Right.
So tell us about the misquote.
So everybody likes to say, Luke, I am your father, but that's not the line. He says, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He told me enough. He told me you killed him. And then he says, no, I am your father. There is no Luke. I am your father.
And there's a reason why it's misquoted. It's basically a shorthand for people to get the point across. I'm quoting Star Wars.
Just like there's never been a Scotty beam me up, but there's been or beam me up Scotty, but there's been a very similar sentence mentioned in Star Trek, and people just shorten it up.
Yeah.
And what about in terms of, is this the best twist for a blockbuster in cinema history?
I don't think so. I think it's the biggest. I think it's the biggest for sure. I think it's one of the most iconic ever for sure, without a doubt. As far as best, I don't think it's the best because, as I mentioned before, personally, I don't think they hinted at it enough to the point where when I saw it, I was just like, no, duh, I can't believe I didn't see that. Yeah. Which I think is required in order to make a really, really satisfying twist, but definitely iconic and yeah, definitely great.
I can't even think of what I would say would be the best twist in cinema history.
I mean,
but this is a good.
There are lots of not blockbuster films, shall we say, which cover a huge amount of films that have some really great twists in them, old classics and stuff like that. You can think of Citizens Kane, some of the real old fashioned black and white ones. They had a lot of good twists in them. Yeah. Alfred Hitchcock movies, But for a big blockbuster that was building to that point, to do that sort of twist, to me, that's where Star Wars became alive. That's when you realised that there was far more to this story than what first appeared on the surface.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I can see that.
And I still don't think it was a good twist. Sorry, I feel bad saying that. I just don't like the movie's fantastic. The scene is great. I just don't think it was a good twist the way it was executed.
Oh, well, we'll have to agree to disagree, I believe, as we move on. And really, I suppose that is the climax of the movie, isn't it? We kind of get a little bit of a heroic scene with the... just before that, the good guys kind of escaping on the Falcon, and then Luke falls through the air, etc. And he's out in the bottom of Bespin, and he's calling out to Ben, 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 and he's getting no response, so he then shouts, Leia! Hear me. And the music that appears in that scene is the Skywalker theme, like the Twin Sunset theme, when he does that. And they just have these shots going between Luke and Leia, zoomed right up my face as she kind of hears what's going on with Luke. Is that surely not enough to signal again that they thought that Leia was always supposed to be his sister? The Skywalker theme playing and everything, which they hadn't really had hardly at all in the movie up to that point.
It's a good one. It's probably your best point.
It is definitely 100% your best point.
But when you add them all together,
I mean, I don't add those other ones. Those are like .001 each, but I think this is actually a relatively strong point.
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it, because I always looked at it when I was thinking why I don't believe that it was always meant to be that they were siblings. I was always like, well, he's got a good, strong connection with her, and the Force, you can talk to people or connect with people that aren't Force sensitive.
Can they understand what you're trying to say though? Sometimes, and she just picks it up.
He can feel whatever she's feeling because he was closer. That's what I'm saying. How I rationalized it, and I mean,
she knows
in the EU, there's things like that all over the place. She knows simply because he's so reaching out to her.
Even Chewie's basically telling. If you read the script,
Chewie's
he's like, no,
fuck
he's
you, bitch, let's go.
Lando, and she's like,
yeah, let's get the fuck out of here.
We need to turn the ship round now. And then when he realizes he has to go with her, and Lando disagrees, he's like, "Rawr, sit down, you, and shut up," And they turn the ship around and they head back again. She's adamant at that point, I need to go and save Luke. And to me, that is to me the strongest thing that shows that there is this connection between them. And then
I could almost get on board with that. I think I guess my thing would be, I think I could shift my criticism to be that they didn't pay it off well enough in Return of the Jedi, as opposed to maybe they didn't have it planned.
Enough, and we get to that in Return of the Jedi because we're one movie at a time. So I'm just talking about why this one to me is my favourite. Because it's
I think you convinced me.
It's a good one. It's a really good point that I've never really looked at that way.
I think you convinced me. Good job, Cam.
Fair enough. I'll chalk that down to a good experience. It's the first time ever. No, I've actually
this day in history.
convinced you something on another podcast as well, Kel, but I can't remember what it was now. But I must admit, I'm regularly convinced by other people's opinions. There's quite a few times in these podcasts where I've went, actually I've changed my mind. I agree with you now. But the kind of finale builds up then as the Falcon escapes. Vader's trying to catch them again. He's deactivated the hyperdrive. They've rescued Luke. Lando brings him in the top hats, etc., etc. Which I love the robot chicken version of that as well. But anyway, and And obviously, Vader's talking to Luke as well. Luke, father, son, come with me. And Luke's refusing to talk to him and just going, Ben, why didn't you tell me? And at the same time, they're all trying to fix the hyperdrive, and R2 just comes up and goes, I know what I need to do here. Switches it on, pew, and they fly away. And Vader is kind of looking, and you can see as he turns around and starts to walk back, all the officers, everybody freezes, and they're just looking up to them because they're all wondering, who's he going to kill for this? Because we guaranteed him. And the key thing is he doesn't. He just walks away silently.
I love that.
I love his double take here. I was telling Christine how much I love this scene. He sees the ship disappear into hyperspace. He looks away for a second, and then he looks back out. And then you're right, he walks away silently. And that's one of those
character
again
development as well. Because
yeah,
to me,
I fucking love it.
Empire is Vader's movie. The entire movie, if you discount the first little bit, which I almost think's like a precursor to what they did in Raiders and what they did in James Bond, where they would show you a little bit of what's been happening previously. For me, the kind of real story of this starts on the attack, when they escape, and he goes to Dagobah and they go looting. That's when this starts, and that's entirely... Everything that happens in the movie is orchestrated by Vader. So if you look at the movie as if it's from Vader's point of view, everything that's happened, is central to what he does. He's the driving force. Because there's no really any plot to Empire Strikes Back. What's the plot? People are running away from the bad guys. Eventually they get caught. There's the plot of Empire Strikes Back. That's not a plot. There's no MacGuffin. There's no specific thing that the good guys are trying to do.
Everyone's reactionary to Vader.
Yeah.
He's the kind of,
which is interesting because it's usually a big no-no.
And of course they did Infinity War like that a little bit as well with Thanos, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I think it works. And the Russos are very big fans. The Empire Strikes Back is their. They did say it was the film that influenced them most. And I think they definitely. Well, I actually wrote a story where they did say that the things like Thanos and how he was a multi-dimensional character, that was the kind of thing that influenced them, that they picked up from Darth Vader and Empire Strikes Back, so
yeah.
And then our very final scene is a very small scene of Lando and Chewie going away to find Han, and Luke and Leia stand, and again another indication for me is that there's a brother-sisterly type of connection when you look at them standing there. They're dressed in the same white robes, She gives him that, it's like a brotherly smell rather than a friendly smell. She's thinking about Han, he's thinking about his dad and all that sort of stuff. And he puts like an arm round her as they watch it going away, and we kind of cut at that point, and that's the kind of finale. And again, that final shot to me was that it was, it indicates that there's this brother-sister relationship. There's some sort of connection between the two, even the way they were just dressed in the same clothes,
What about the graphic sex scene in the post-credit scene?
Well,
that works against your theory.
It does work against the theory, and we're done. And Empires does end on a bit of a cliffhanger. So what do you think of the ending? Some people don't like that.
I appreciate it for what it is. It's a great cliffhanger ending. Like I don't think, as I mentioned before, for me it makes it less satisfying, but it's not like I don't hold it against it, because it's not trying to be a complete 100% fulfilling story. It's the middle chapter of an ongoing saga, and as a middle chapter, it's about as strong as you can get. So, yeah, I think it works perfectly.
Yep.
Kyle?
Same. It's just the best way possible to end this movie because of just the type of movie that it is, and it's perfect.
Probably,
there's nothing else you could have done.
There's no probably surprise for guessing this, but out of all the Star Wars endings, this one's my favourite. That's what I think of. Like they have this. They're all similar. The ending to Star Wars films where there's this like group shot or something, and I love the intimacy that it's just Luke, Leia, and the two droids, and then as it pulls back, you see the fleet, all kind of flying away. I just absolutely love it. Anyway, so we're finished.
I will say, hold on. I will say, as far as like endings go, it is just definitely gives me a different feeling. So like when I watch Star Wars A New Hope, at the end of it, I just like the ending scene, I'm like, okay, that felt good. At the end of Return of the Jedi, okay, that felt good. But at the end of The Empire Strikes Back, it's just like, all right, I want to see more.
Yeah.
So it's just a different feeling
It
that you
makes
get.
me want to put Return of the Jedi on immediately, And I think Infinity War's got that as well. It makes you want to put on Endgame, You wouldn't watch Infinity War and then go, I'll watch Endgame sometime next month. You'd probably watch it a couple of days later, wouldn't you?
How would you have felt if they ended Infinity War after them beheading Thanos and then have it just cut to black afterwards?
Oh,
I wouldn't have liked
I
that.
think
There
it
was
better the way it was.
Yeah,
think-
there was
okay.
there was some talk on the internet about where during the editing process, because these movies were shot back to back, and while they were shooting them, there was a time where they considered having the snap happen in Endgame, and then there was a time where they considered some of the stuff in Endgame happening in Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
I think they made the right choice with what they did.
Yeah,
I agree.
I mean,
I agree.
the final words in Infinity War being Captain America saying "Oh God," and then Thanos just smiling into the sunset it's perfect, and it's such an Empire Strikes Back moment.
I just imagine how I would have felt if like they had that and then it would kept going and then they kill Thanos, but he destroyed the stones. So like that was it. I could just imagine like what happens now? Like what would I have thought? Like I'm just curious of how I would have felt for that year gap.
Angry.
That would have been what?
I said I would have been angry.
No, I'm saying I would have been like, what?
Anyway, guys. So what were your feelings after watching the movie this time, Jammer? Since probably already knowing the Kyles, but I'll ask you first.
Yeah, I mean, I did think it improved from the last time I watched it. As I mentioned, I think I appreciated the fight scene between Vader and Luke a lot better. And I was also, I think this was probably the most entertained I'd been by it in a long time, since I think it was like the longest gap between me watching it.
Because of that, possibly. Yeah.
Exactly. Because of that, I was able to appreciate it a little bit fresher. And I also just got a kick-ass 4K TV, and watching it on that was pretty cool.
I must admit, I like that as well, because since I got my 4K TV, I've not watched it, because we had started these podcasts by then, and I deliberately had held myself off. Every time I've gotten one, I've just wanted to go and watch them all, and I've held myself back. So to watch it like in it's not 4K, but it's upscaling, was really, really good. Enjoyed it tremendously.
Right. But that being said, like I still think it's really impossible for me to disassociate myself having seen it a billion times. So it's like I still don't get like that pure rush that I'm sure would come with viewing number one. So it is really impossible for me to objectively make any comment about the movie without having had the years and years of watching it over and over and over again, and being a little bit occasionally, for lack of a better word, bored by what's happening on screen, because I already know every in and out.
I understand
for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. Like that's probably, I can guarantee you that's at least influenced me partially on my rankings of it. Is the fact that one movie or a couple movies I've watched less than this, therefore it still holds a better entertainment value.
Understand that. Yeah.
I can see that.
But I think you have to look at it. You have to try to look at it from a kind of virgin point of view, almost. If you're matching them up, if you're comparing them to one another and looking at the good parts of it versus the bad parts and what you're thinking at, and when you really analyse it, I think to me it still holds up as for me it's my favourite film of all time. It goes beyond not just my favourite Star Wars film. Kyle, where does it sit with you now after seeing it?
I mean, it's still the best Star Wars film for the saga. Amazing score. Watching this last night really made me want to watch. Like I said this after watching A New Hope, I said I want to watch the whole OT again. But like you, I'm holding off and watching these movies one a month.
Because you want to have that
podcast.
fresh perspective every time we talk about it, rather than
exactly.
I thought about something really cool, but that was 4 weeks ago.
Exactly. Which is why when we came up with this idea, I was like, hey, everybody that's on the show, we're going to watch. You can watch them whenever you want, but it has to be at least the week of recording. This episode made me miss 3PO in the sequel trilogy more than anything else has, and really makes me sad that they haven't used him more. Not that he needed necessarily to be used as much as he is in the OT, but I think we still are missing out on what should be the best connective tissue throughout the entire saga, being 3PO. Even though a lot of the shit was garbage in the prequel trilogy, they at least that tissue is there. And I do want to say, fucking amazing acting, physical acting by both Anthony Daniels and Peter Mayhew as 3PO and Chewbacca. It's all fucking top notch in Empire, man.
Yeah, it's just everything just comes together. For me, it's the disappointing thing is that's Star Wars pinnacle. We've had so many movies since then, and they've never come close to matching that. And to me, it then expresses some unrealised potential, if that makes sense. Because I think, while Jedi is a great film, it has its points that don't work so well as well. Anyway, worst actor. I don't know what your thoughts will be in this, but Jammer, who is the best actor in Empire Strikes Back?
Best actor in Empire Strikes Back. I think I have to agree with you. I think it might be Yoda, because of everything, because of the lines he says, how he says it, that balance between being a goofball and being really serious. As I mentioned, he's able to become more serious without really taking away from him potentially still being a goofy guy naturally. So yeah, it's a layered performance. It's not all goofy and it's not all serious. It's like an actual person, or I guess alien there.
Yeah, Kyle.
So yeah, best one for me.
I was really torn between James Earl Jones and Ford, honestly, and I'm gonna give it to Vader. Every little, because it's very hard to do, at least Frank Oz had the benefit of doing both the physical performance and the voice for Yoda. Vader, James Earl Jones, he's happened to just look at a screen and see what David Prowse did and kind of match that, and I think he did an amazing job with
Prowse
it.
did as well, though. That's why it's like a two, because Prowse's body language acting as well is really good in the film.
Good.
Yes,
absolutely.
And that
which gave
James Jones does. So, but no, I totally get you, because I think Vader's the best character in the film. To me, it is Vader's film, but I agree with Jammer that Yoda for me, and that's saying that Harrison Ford is my favourite actor of all time, and this is my favourite film that he's in, second closely being Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I still feel, as in terms of just pure acting performance, what Frank Oz does, and I get what you're saying with James Earl Jones as well, because from a voice acting point of view, it's absolutely phenomenal. Does anyone have? I don't have a worst actor in this one, I'll be honest. No. Do you, Jammer or Kale?
No.
There's two lines that are delivered really badly. One, Jammer mentioned along way back.
Wait! I'm gonna guess. Yes. Two fighters against a Star Destroyer.
Yes. Yeah. That guy delivered his lines like he was.
Can I guess the other one?
I guess the other one? What's that?
Good. Our first catch of the day.
No, actually, the other one is Sir Alec Guinness's first lines where he's talking to Luke on Hoth. I felt that was not his best performance, and we all know Alec Guinness was not very necessarily into his role as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He got better, but I'm not going to call him the worst actor, but those are two definitely the worst lines.
I have another line.
What's that?
Imperial troops have entered the base. Because basically, I gave as convincing a performance right there as that guy did.
Yes, bravo.
Yeah, but come on, these are not the main characters. I mean, just pick a film.
No,
unless you're looking at maybe, I don't know, something like The Godfather, right? Some really high end. You will find that in every single film. Because these are just extras, basically. They're not even actors,
Other than Alec Guinness, but he did get better with his stuff.
What was his first line? What was Alec Guinness's first line? I don't remember.
Look,
you will go to the Dagobah system.
Yeah. There you will learn from Yoda. It's a little hammy.
Yeah,
but it's fine when he shows up. So. I get what you mean. I totally get what you mean. Anyway,
so that's just a testament to this.
It's like,
this film.
I'm a spooky ghost.
Yeah, there's not really.
I think to be fair,
really
for all the
bad
other
overall
films, if we've picked a worst actor, we've always made sure it was a main actor, one of the lead roles, because we could have picked much worse people in all the other films as well. And I think
we could have.
A New Hope, there was a couple of people picked some, but I think in this one, if that's the best we can do, I think we have to say there was no real bad acting performances.
No.
What about best scene? I'm going to go Malone first with this one. So, Kyle, what was your favourite scene in the movie?
Luke and Vader on the catwalk, man. Absolutely. Not just the reveal, but the whole scene from the time basically Vader leaps out at Luke to Luke falling to go down the super fun happy slide. I think this is one of the best scenes in Hollywood history.
I think the super fun happy slide, that would have been demolished nowadays if that had happened in a movie where it's like he falls 1,000,000 feet and it just happens to fall into this tiny hole that slides down.
Bespin is a closed circuit, so they wouldn't want stuff like smashing into the bottom. So actually, the way it funnels out its rubbish to the outside kind of does make quite good practical sense if you think about it. You know, for a situation like that. Anyway, Jammer, best scene.
Hot fight, battle scene. I remember the music. It was like that 14-minute music set piece. I remember listening to that constantly, and it's golden. It's very different from anything that we've seen in the Star Wars movies. I don't think we've seen anything like it since, and I don't think that anything came before it. And it's just it really showed that they're willing to do sort of different and unique things.
And to start the movie with that as well, you know, to start with the biggest battle right at the start of the movie, that was very unusual. Yeah. You know,
like there is nothing bigger after that. You're right. There's not that much action or fight scenes. There's the chase on the asteroid, which I think is a close second for me.
There's constant tension. Every scene, you know, there's no wasted scenes in Empire. If a scene's there, it has a purpose to me. And usually they cut between all the scenes so quickly that they never let the tension lift. There's very few points where they just let it sit and you get to kind of catch your breath a little bit on it. I don't think for me. Okay, so do you guys have worst scenes at all? Any of you?
No, I have a scene that I don't like that I wish would have been different, but it's not bad.
Okay, that's good enough to hear.
Yeah, the bounty hunters. You guys know my opinion. Everybody knows my opinion on Boba Fett, and I think that because of the lack of payoff with Boba Fett, including what they did with Return of the Jedi, I would have preferred it to have just been a TIE fighter, like a TIE Advance X1 that we know has hyperdrive following the Falcon instead. Like,
you wouldn't,
the bounty hunter shit, it's pointless.
That whole bounty, thinking all the EU that created that you lapped up as
individual. I'm talking just for the movie itself, not connecting to just these movies themselves, not connecting to anything else. Like I said, it's not a bad scene, it's just looking at the movies, there's no payoff.
Today, if I was an exec, I would say there should be some sort of confrontation with Boba Fett in this movie. Like that he should do something before he flies off.
And that's why modern day executives would get shit wrong, Jammer, because you can't change perfection.
Are you saying you wouldn't do that?
No.
I think that would add a lot of great stuff to it, like to have him actually do something.
Do you know, I've thought
like
about
maybe
this a million
before
times.
He takes off.
Imagine you went into an alternative universe and nobody had invented Star Wars. You'd be like, I know how I'm going to make money. And you know, would you do anything different? And I always kind of maintained with Empire, I wouldn't change a shot, not a single shot. But what I might have done is just make the part where Boba Fett encounters Luke and fires him a little bit. Maybe modern day that could have been amplified a little bit, could have been a bit more of an action scene showing that Boba Fett was actually a pretty decent hunter. But for me, it's more that they should have done more with that in Return of the Jedi than Empire. I can't find fault at Empire for that. I find fault at Jedi for that. And therefore, it doesn't affect the way I think about Empire. Because I think you have to go in order. You know, that's the way you've got to run it.
Yeah, you're right. If I could choose one, it's like you can only change one. Definitely definitely Jedi. I would have changed. But I would have changed both if I could. But who do I know? Who cares? But as far as my least favorite scene, I think it's the hallucination sequence. Yeah. I thought it was boring.
Okay. Well, and that's it for The Empire Strikes Back. Jammer, After this, just one last thing. Do you still, before we get into The Last Jedi, would you still maintain that The Last Jedi for you is a better film than Empire Strikes Back?
So I think I would be irresponsible to say anything right now. I think I'm gonna wait until I watch The Last Jedi again and we discuss then.
I think that's fair. And you know, we don't want to answer that question before we get to the anticipation of The Last Jedi one,
November,
which is definitely going to be, I think, the most fun one anyway. As well. It's just going to be good fun. That will be November. But the next one will be Return of the Jedi, which will be myself. Kyle will of course be back again, and Kyle, it's who is it? It's Brian, is it that's doing that with us? Who's done one of the podcasts before? He's going to be.
He did Attack of the Clones with us.
And he's going to be doing Return of the Jedi with us, so definitely looking forward to getting our teeth into that one. We expect that to hit around about September 26th, so keep an eye out for that. You will obviously find all of us writing for LRM online. Joseph Jammer Medina is the editor-in-chief of that site. Myself and Kyle also work there writing stories and giving as much information as you can to you. You can check out our YouTube channels. You can check out our Lost Fanboys podcast network, where you will find Lost Fanboys, you will find Breaking Geek the radio podcast, you will find the Last Call podcast that you're listening to just now, and many other treats beside that as well. Guys, where can people find you? Jammer?
You can find me on Twitter at JamTheWriter, and of course all of my stuff at LRM Online.
And you guys can find me at that Kyle Malone on Twitter and hosting LRM Ranks It and LR Mornings. LR Mornings is every Monday through Friday.
And you can find me at Cam_LRM on Twitter, and you can find me writing stories Monday to Friday during the week. Check me out in the comments, speak to us. We always like to chat with you guys. So thanks very much for listening. Thanks Jammer, thanks Kyle for coming on to this. Great to have you along today. See you later, guys.
Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.
May the Force be with you.
And also with you.